Chapter 906. An entire day passed. On the afternoon of the second day, Ji Tianxing finally arrived at Cloud Soul Palace with the Guard of Honor. The afternoon sun shone on the white sea of clouds, causing the sea of clouds to be suffused with a hazy golden light. It was like a fairyland. Cloud Soul Palace stood in the sea of clouds. It was as sacred and majestic as ever. However, the current Cloud Spirit Palace was much more festive and lively than usual. Even though they were still 20 miles away, Ji Tianxing could clearly see that the square outside Cloud Spirit Palace was filled with solemn ceremonial guards. There were at least 10,000 red-clothed guards and red-dressed maidservants. They lined up from the edge of the square to the entrance of Cloud Soul Palace. The Guard of Honor stood on both sides of the square. There was a red carpet and fresh flowers in the middle. It extended to the green jade steps and connected to the entrance of Cloud Soul Palace. The energetic guards held colorful flags, red gauze curtains, and lanterns. They also carried gongs, drums, and many other musical instruments. There were also 2,000 halberd-wielding guards. They stood on both sides of the road like stone statues, showing the majesty of Cloud Soul Palace. The young and beautiful maidservants carried baskets of flowers or instruments like pipa, harp, flute, and guzheng. They were all waiting quietly on the square. What a magnificent ceremonial procession of 10,000 people! In the entire Middle Continent, perhaps only an ancient family like the Cloud Spirit Palace could arrange such a huge formation. Fortunately, the square of Cloud Soul Palace was big enough to accommodate such a grand guard. In addition to the Guard of Honor, there were also thousands of martial artists from all over the world in the square. They were all guests who came to Cloud Soul Palace to congratulate. They were attracted by the Guard of Honor and came to the square to watch the show. They were waiting to admire the glory of the Emperor's son. When Ji Tianxing saw the Guard of Honor on the square, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. He thought to himself, the Yun family actually set up a guard of 10,000 people to welcome me? Even the imperial court didn't set up such a grand guard when the emperor chose his concubine. Uncle Yun said that he wanted the wedding to be grand. But isn't this a little too high profile? After a while, when he landed on the square with the Guard of Honor, everyone's eyes were on him. Boom, 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 boom. 3 cannon salutes were heard, and immediately, the tens of thousands of people in the Guard of Honor played a joyful music. The strong guards beat the gongs and drums, and the pretty maids sprinkled fresh flowers. The young and beautiful dancers began to dance gracefully. The spectating martial artists also cheered. Immediately, the sound of gongs and drums filled the square. Cheers erupted like a mountain torrent, resounding through the clouds. A festive and solemn atmosphere enveloped the square and the entire Cloud Spirit Palace. Ji Tianxing led Yan-Er Jiangchun and the 200 people who were escorting the bride. They stepped on the red carpet that was covered with fresh flowers, crossed the square, and walked towards the entrance of Cloud Spirit Palace. He walked through the crowd with a smile on his face. His entire body exuded a confident and dignified aura unique to a prodigy. He appeared to be in high spirits and extraordinary. The many guests in the square immediately exclaimed and began to discuss. Wow, is this the son-in-law of Cloud Spirit Palace? He is the #1 genius of our clan, the most dazzling prince of the monarch mansion. As expected of a prodigy prince, such elegance is rare. I didn't expect that the prodigy Ji Tianxing, whose name shook the central state, would be so young. In the midst of the celebratory music and the praises of the guests, Ji Tianxing crossed the square, climbed the green jade steps, and arrived at the entrance of Cloud Spirit Palace. The housekeeper of the Yun family was already waiting at the entrance. Seeing Ji Tianxing walk over, the housekeeper greeted him with a smile and bowed. Greetings, young Master Ji. Thank you for your trouble, butler. Ji Tianxing nodded at him, revealing a kind smile. The old housekeeper pointed at the 10,000 people in the square and said with a smile, Young Master Ji, there is something that you may not know. A long time ago, the head of the Yun family said that if you can eliminate the Duanmu family and resolve the crisis of Cloud Spirit Palace, he will recognize you as the son-in-law of Cloud Spirit Palace. Moreover, the head of the Yun family will set up 10,000 people to welcome you into the Yun family. Young Master Ji, the head of the Yin family has fulfilled his promise today. Are you satisfied? Hearing the old housekeeper's words, Ji Tianxing finally understood. I see. The old housekeeper bowed with a smile and gestured for him to enter. Young Master Ji, please enter. Ji Tianxing nodded and led Yin Jiang Chun, and the bridal procession into Cloud Spirit Palace. They passed through a wide courtyard and arrived at the main hall of Cloud Spirit Palace, under the gaze of countless guests. The old housekeeper led the 200 people in the procession to rest. Ji Tianxing led Yin and Jiang Chun through the welcoming guests and disciples of the Yin family into the main hall of Cloud Spirit Palace. The main hall was filled with guests. Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yin Zhongqi and Bailey Ningsu sat at the head of the table. On both sides of the main hall sat dozens of experts from the noble families of the central state. Everyone looked at Ji Tianxing with smiles on their faces, sizing him up and nodding their heads in praise. Ji Tianxing stood in the middle of the hall and bowed to Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yin Zhongqi, and Yin Zhongqi. Your son-in-law greets grandfather. Greetings to father-in-law and mother-in-law. Today he was going to marry Yun Yao, so he had to change the way he addressed Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yin Zhongqi. Miracle Dr. Bailey stroked his beard with a smile, his face glowing. Yin Zhongqi and Yin Zhongqi were also overjoyed. They quickly raised their hands to signal Ji Tianxing to rise. Then Ji Tianxing raised his hand to signal Jiang Chun and Yin to present the bridal gifts. Jiang Chun opened his space ring and took out large boxes, placing them in the middle of the hall. Yin held a thick list of gifts in her hands and read aloud in a clear voice. 1,000 miles of marriage is linked by a thread. Husband and wife love each other for 100 years. When a man is of age, he should tie the knot. When a woman is of age, she should marry her in-laws. The list of gifts is as follows. 100 upper-rank spirit stones, 100 western luminous pearls, 100 fire spirit gems, 100 bolts of heavenly silk satin, 100 kilograms of true inferno gold, 100 tails of dark star mithril. Every time Yin read out a gift, Jiang Chun would take out a large box and place it in the middle of the hall after opening the lid. As time passed, the number of treasure chests in the hall increased. All kinds of rare treasures and gemstones shone with the light of jewels, illuminating the entire hall with dazzling colors. Although the guests were all experts who had seen many things, they were still shocked by the wealth of the gifts. They all let out gasps of admiration and surprise. Finally, when Yin finished reading out the list of gifts, there were 99 treasure chests in the hall, almost filling up the empty space. Ji Tianxing smiled and bowed to Yin Zhongqi and Yin Zhongqi. Although these 99 gifts are not priceless, they are the wealth that I have accumulated with all my might. This gift also means that it will last forever. I hope that my father-in-law and mother-in-law will kindly accept it. In fact, this was all the wealth that the Tianjin Domain Chief Manor had accumulated. It had a special meaning and was very valuable. The guests were all knowledgeable people. How could they not know that the value of these gifts was astonishing? Everyone was full of praise and admiration for Ji Tianxing. They even cupped their hands and congratulated Yin Zhongqi and Yin Zhongqi, saying all kinds of congratulatory words. Yin Zhongqi and Yin Zhongqi were beaming with joy. They were very satisfied with Ji Tianxing and hurriedly asked the steward to accept the gifts. After the matter was over, Yin Zhongqi said to Ji Tianxing with a kind expression, "My good son-in-law, you must be tired after coming from afar. Please rest in the side room for a while. There will be a banquet tonight in the palace. My good son-in-law, please come and greet the guests." Chapter 907. Ji Tianxing brought Yin and Jiang Chun to rest in the other courtyard. He only appeared again when night fell, and went to the main hall to attend the banquet. The main hall was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was a joyous scene. Hundreds of experts from various powerful forces were gathered in the main hall. They raised their cups and drank together. Laughter filled the hall. The guests took turns toasting Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yin Zhongqi, Ji Changkong, and the others. They said all kinds of wonderful words and wished Cloud Soul Palace a happy ending. Ji Tianxing, the bridegroom, was naturally the focus of the banquet. All the guests in the main hall took turns toasting him and giving him all kinds of praise and blessings. Ji Tianxing maintained a smile as he chatted and drank with the guests. The square in front of the main hall had already been set up for the banquet. Hundreds of exquisite white jade tables were piled with all kinds of spirit fruits, delicious food, pastries, and fine wine. Thousands of well-dressed guests with extraordinary temperaments were gathered in the square, drinking wine and chatting merrily. The servants and maids of Cloud Soul Palace came and went in the square in front of the hall. They brought countless delicacies and fine wine to the banquet. The night sky was dark, but Cloud Spirit Palace was brightly lit and full of colorful lights. The palace was filled with bustling crowds, filled with clamorous voices, and filled with a festive atmosphere. Tonight's banquet was even more lively and joyous than Miracle Dr. Bailey's birthday banquet a few months ago. The grand banquet lasted until the wee hours of the morning, before it gradually stopped. Many of the guests were slightly tipsy. They left the banquet with red faces and went to rest. Ji Tianxing, Yun Zhongqi, and the others waited until 3 o'clock in the morning. They waited until all the guests in the main hall had left before returning to their rooms to rest. The bustling Cloud Soul Palace gradually quieted down and fell into a deep sleep in a beautiful and peaceful atmosphere. Countless servants and maids of the Yun family hurriedly cleaned and tidied up the banquet until dawn. For hours later the sun rose. Today was the 9th day of the month. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were going to marry and bring her back to Central State. Early in the morning, many guests rushed to the main hall of Cloud Spirit Palace to watch the ceremony. Although the early morning sky was a little dim, the sun did not rise. However, the guests were all in high spirits as they gathered in the square in front of the palace and waited expectantly. Very soon, Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, Ji Changkong, and the other two entered the main hall under the escort of the steward and the guards. The four of them took their seats in the main seats of the hall. They looked at the entrance of the hall with smiles on their faces, waiting for the newlyweds to perform the ceremony. Not long after, the cheers of countless guests sounded in the square outside the hall. Ji Tianxing, dressed in a red wedding robe, stepped across the square in high spirits and walked into the hall with a smile on his face. He stood in front of the main seat and bowed to Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his father. Then he waited patiently. With 3 cannon salutes in the square, the old housekeeper shouted with joy, "The bride has arrived!" Immediately, the square was filled with jubilant music. The bride Yun Yao, dressed in a red dress, slowly walked into the hall under the escort of 2 matrons of honor and many maids. Immediately, everyone's eyes gathered on Yun Yao. Countless guests were stunned and exclaimed in surprise. Yun Yao today was truly peerless. Her beauty was soul-stirring. She was dressed in a fiery red wedding dress embroidered with phoenixes that trailed on the ground. The golden double-layered wide silk sleeves were embroidered with the pattern of mandarin ducks and pomegranates. Her bright red satin dress, with a pattern of flowers and birds, was embroidered with the pattern of 100 flowers and 100 blessings. The hem of the dress dragged on the ground for more than 6 feet. Her cloud-like hair was tied into a noble and dignified bun. She wore a Luan phoenix crown inlaid with gold and jade, and a 5 phoenix hairpin with the sun rising was inserted into the bun. There was also a golden buyao with 2 flowers and a cloud crane hanging on her temples. As she walked, it swayed gently and let out an ethereal sound like a Luan phoenix. The Luan phoenix crown was inlaid with 99 fiery jade bead chains, forming a bead curtain that covered her beautiful face like a veil. Even if countless guests stared at her with their eyes wide open, they could only vaguely see Yun Yao's fair and beautiful face. Her eyebrows were like smoke, her eyes were like the waves of a swan, and her thin red lips were slightly pursed. Although her figure was covered by the Luan phoenix crown and robe, she walked with a peerless grace, just like a fairy in the heaven. What a beautiful woman with limpid autumn waters and jade-like bones, a hibiscus-like face and willows-like eyebrows. In the amazed eyes and praises of countless guests, the matrons of honor and maids supported Yun Yao to stand beside Ji Tianxing. Although the two of them hadn't seen each other for only a few days, when Ji Tianxing saw Yun Yao beside him again, he still felt amazed and his heart beat faster. He had never thought that Yun Yao would be so beautiful when she wore the fiery red wedding dress. It was so breathtaking that it made people's souls leave their bodies. When he looked at Yun Yao affectionately, Yun Yao also turned her head slightly and looked at him. She lowered her head slightly, and there was a trace of shyness in her watery eyes. Her fair and beautiful face was flushed, and there was a faint smile on her red lips. It was intoxicating. The two of them looked at each other, and the tenderness in their eyes was like water. Their hearts were also connected. At this moment, the two of them only had each other in their eyes. It was as if they had forgotten everything and everyone around them. Finally, the butler's loud voice woke the two of them up. The auspicious time has arrived. Please bow to the heavens and earth. Bow to the heavens and earth. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao collected their thoughts, turned to the entrance of the hall, and bowed in unison. Bow to the parents. The two of them turned to face Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi and his wife, and Ji Chongkong. Bow to each other. The two of them looked at each other, and bowed with a smile on their faces. The ceremony is complete. Following the old butler's loud voice, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao finished their ceremony, and became husband and wife. As for the sending them to the bridal chamber, it could not be done in Cloud Spirit Palace today. It had to be done in Tianqing Palace after Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao returned to Zhongzhou City. After the two of them bowed to the heavens and earth, the maids at the side quickly brought a few cups of wedding tea. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao picked up the tea at the same time, and served tea to Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi and his wife, and Ji Chongkong. After the tea was served, the ceremony came to an end. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao bid farewell to Miracle Dr. Bailey, and Yun Zhongqi and his wife. Amidst the laughter of the guests, the two of them left the main hall, and walked to the square outside the hall. In the square, the wedding procession of 200 people was ready to go. Yan and Jiang Chen stood at the front of the procession, waiting with smiles on their faces. There was an exquisite and luxurious flower carriage in the procession. It was as big as a house, and it was made of gold and jade. Thousands of gems were embedded in it, and it shone brightly. Chapter 908. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao boarded the bridal sedan, amidst the deafening sounds of gongs and drums, and the cheers of countless guests. After everything was ready, the bridal escort team set off at Jiang Chen's command. 200 people escorted the bridal sedan, pulled by 9 white feather Pegasi into the sky, and rushed towards Zhongzhou City. Behind the wedding procession, there was also a 600-man honor guard. This was the bridal escort team sent by Cloud Soul Palace. There were 200 maids and 400 elite guards in the team. Not only was this team escorting Yun Yao to Zhongzhou City, they were also carrying the dowry that Cloud Soul Palace had prepared for Yun Yao. There were 800 people in total in the two teams. All of them were riding spirit birds and flying spirit beasts. They flew across the sky in a grandiose manner, blotting out the sky and covering the sun. The guests of Cloud Soul Palace all walked to the plaza and watched the bridal escort team leave. They were still immersed in excitement and shock as they discussed endlessly. Yun Zhongqi and his wife stood at the entrance of the main hall and watched the bridal escort team leave. Their expressions and emotions were extremely complicated. Bailey Ningsu's eyes were covered in a layer of mist. She was both happy and sad as she said, "I never thought that this day would come so quickly. Our Yao Yao is getting married in the end." As Yun Yao's birth mother, she was naturally overjoyed that Yun Yao was getting married today. However, she was also filled with reluctance and worry. Her emotions were extremely complicated. Fortunately, her will was firm, and she had always been dignified and graceful. That was why she didn't cry in front of all the guests. Yun Zhongqi patted the back of her hand gently and comforted her. "Ningsu, our children and grandchildren will have their own fortune. We have to believe in Yao Yao and Tianxing. They will definitely be happy forever." Although he said that with a smile on his face, there was a trace of worry in his eyes. However, there was a hint of worry in the depths of his eyes as he sighed inwardly. "I've been feeling uneasy for the past few days. I keep having a premonition that something is about to happen. I hope that they'll have a smooth journey, and that nothing bad will happen. I hope that the great master and master will return a little later, and give Yao Yao and Tianxing more time together." When he thought of this, Yun Zhongqi's emotions became even more complicated. However, he could only sigh helplessly. The mighty wedding procession was flying high up in the sky, getting further and further away from Cloud Soul Palace. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were sitting on a golden throne in an exquisite and luxurious sedan. They were talking in a low voice. Yun Yao's gaze pierced through the Luanfeng and Ming Crown's pearl curtains, looking at Ji Tianqing. Her voice was filled with concern as she said, "Tianqing, there is still a day's journey to Central Continent City. You've been busy these past few days, so you must be tired. Take this opportunity to have a good rest." Ji Tianqing reached out and held her hand. He smiled and shook his head, saying, "Yao Yao, to be able to bow to heaven and earth with you and marry you into my family. My heart is excited and excited. How can I be tired? Today, you're so beautiful that it's intoxicating. I just want to look at you and accompany you forever. How can I rest?" Yun Yao's eyes flashed with a hint of shyness. She smiled faintly and said in a coquettish voice, "I don't know where you learned to speak sweet words. You're becoming more and more glib." Ji Tianqing's smile became even gentler. He held her slender hand with one hand and gently parted the bead curtains of the phoenix crown with the other. He gently stroked her beautiful face. "Everything I said came from the bottom of my heart. Why should I imitate others? Yao Yao, we've already bowed to heaven and earth in front of everyone. From today onwards, we're husband and wife. Right now, I just want to hurry back to Central Continent as soon as possible. I can't miss tonight's wedding and ruin the beautiful scenery." Hearing this, Yun Yao's eyes became even more bashful. Her beautiful cheeks blushed, making her even more beautiful and suffocating. However, at this moment, Ji Tianqing heard Yin and Jiang Chen talking in a low voice beside the sedan. "It's a little strange today. It's already 9 in the morning. Usually, the sun would be high up in the sky. Why can't there be any sunlight today?" Yin frowned and looked up at the sky. His eyes were full of doubts. Jiang Chen replied calmly, "Maybe it's a cloudy day today. There's no sun to begin with. Young Master Yin, you don't have to worry about it." Ji Tianqing heard their conversation and subconsciously turned his head to look at the sky. He saw that the sky above the sea of clouds was still gray and covered by a faint layer of gray fog. There was no sunlight in the sky, but there was a whistling cold wind raging. The temperature was getting lower and lower. Although this team of 800 people was made up of martial experts and strong cultivators, they were not afraid of the cold wind in the sky. However, Ji Tianqing felt that something was strange. He had a bad premonition in his heart. However, today was his and Yun Yao's big day. He could only pray silently in his heart. "I hope that everything goes smoothly and safely. Don't let any more twists and turns affect my and Yao Yao's wedding day." However, the heavens didn't allow it. After the bridal escort team flew for 4 hours, it was already afternoon. The sky was actually covered with dark clouds. The dark clouds were rolling. It was going to rain heavily. Endless dark clouds surged from the horizon and covered thousands of miles of the sky. Although it was afternoon, the world was dark and gloomy, as if night had arrived. In the rolling dark clouds, there were even blazing white lightning flashing. Thunder roared and lightning flashed. The rumbling sound of rolling thunder could be heard. Not long after, the sky became as dark as night, and heavy rain began to pour down. The bridal escort team was suddenly in a mess. Many guards and maids hurriedly circulated their martial arts to resist the storm. They were all discussing with each other in shock. The exquisite and beautiful bridal sedan was also swaying unsteadily from the strong wind. The beaded necklace made of gemstones swayed with the wind, making clanking sounds. Countless fresh flowers withered and fell from the storm. Ji Tianqing's expression changed. He frowned and murmured, "How can this be? It's obviously late winter. Why is there thunder roaring and lightning flashing? Why is there a storm?" Yun Yao also showed a worried expression. She held the folds of her phoenix coronet and robe tightly, and said in a low voice, "Tianqing, I have an ominous feeling in my heart. I'm afraid something is going to happen." Ji Tianqing also had the same worry. He quickly held her hand and comforted her. "Yao Yao, don't worry. Nothing will happen. It's just that the weather is abnormal. At most, our journey will be delayed, and we will rush back to the central province later." Soon 15 minutes had passed. The strong wind in the sky became more and more violent. The rumbling sound of thunder could be heard continuously. Countless dazzling electric snakes cut across the dark sky. The world became as dark as night. The majestic bridal escort team swayed in the wind, rain, and thunder. They were moving slower and slower. Ji Tianxing had no choice but to order the bridal escort team to descend below the clouds and fly at a low altitude. The bridal escort team gradually descended to a height of 1,000 meters above the ground. They were flying above a vast forest. At this moment in the dark sky ahead, a dazzling red light suddenly appeared. Chapter 909. It was already very unusual for the day to be as dark as night, and it made the bridal escort team very suspicious. When the crowd saw the dark red light in the sky, their expressions changed drastically. They all revealed looks of horror and fear. The red blood cloud that covered the sky was approaching at an extremely fast speed, with a murderous and bloody aura. Although the 800 guards and maidservants did not understand what was going on, they could guess that the blood cloud that covered the sky was most likely formed by a powerful demon. These guards and maidservants had lived in the palace for a long time, and were used to living a peaceful life. They were not experienced soldiers, so they were naturally terrified and panicked in the face of the blood cloud that covered the sky, and the powerful demon that was about to arrive. In the flower carriage, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao's expressions changed when they saw the blood cloud that was coming from the sky. Both of their eyes were filled with rage and murderous intent. It's the demon that's causing trouble? A demon that can cause the weather to change? Could it be a powerful soul refinement cultivator? The demon is so arrogant that they chose today to deal with us? They deserve to die. In the blink of an eye, the blood cloud that covered the sky flew to the sky above the vast forest. Swoosh! The blood cloud suddenly disappeared, and two burly figures appeared in the sky. The leader was a demon that was more than 3 meters tall. He had 2 heads, and his face was resolute and dignified. His skin was dark, and his body was covered in black dragon scales. His snow-white hair danced in the wind, and he had a pair of black azura bone wings on his back that exuded wisps of black fog and demonic aura. He was like a demon that walked out of hell, and his entire body exuded an extremely powerful and domineering aura. Without a doubt, this person was the ancient demon emperor. The person behind him was also a demon that was more than 10 meters tall, and as muscular as a bear. This person was blackish purple in color, and covered in dense hair. His head was as big as a bucket, and his face was extremely ugly. He had a flat and bloody mouth, and his nose was only 2 holes. He did not have eyes, only a single red eye that was as big as a wash basin. His legs were as thick as buckets, but he had 6 sturdy arms and 4 dark purple wings on his back. This 4-winged, 6-armed one-eyed devilish being was one of the 6 devilish commanders under the devilish emperor, the heavenly barbaric devilish commander who ranked 3rd. He looked down at the 800 people who were escorting the bride. His single eye was filled with a ferocious and bloodthirsty light. He was very agitated. Although the demonic emperor and the sky barbaric demon commander were only hovering in the air and had yet to attack, the demonic emperor and the sky barbaric demon commander had yet to attack. However, both of them were soul refinement stage cultivators. Their bodies exuded an invisible spiritual pressure that enveloped an area of 10 miles. The 800 guards and maids were all suppressed by the powerful spiritual energy. Their faces were pale, and their eyes were filled with fear. Some of the more timid maids were so scared that their faces turned pale, and their bodies began to tremble. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao stood side by side in the chariot. They stared coldly at the ancient demon emperor and the sky barbaric demonic commander with fear and hatred in their eyes. Yun Yao muttered softly, "These 2 devilish beings are both soul refinement stage cultivators. They should be the devilish commanders under the devilish emperor." Ji Tianxing frowned. He observed the devilish emperor and the sky barbaric demonic commander for a while before saying in a low voice, "Yao Yao, we are in big trouble. That 4-winged, 6-armed one-eyed devilish being is indeed a devilish commander. However, the 2-headed, white-haired devilish being in the lead is the ancient demon emperor. I remember his aura. No matter what he looks like, I can recognize him." Yun Yao's pupils constricted. Shock flashed across her eyes as she said in disbelief, "The devilish emperor came personally? What should we do? She knew very well that although the devilish emperor had not recovered his strength, he was still one of the top cultivators on the continent. Other than powerful cultivators like God Teacher Heiyu and the Emperor Lord, almost no one could stop the devilish emperor. With her and Ji Tianqing's strength, even if they had 800 guards and maids, they would not be enough for the devilish emperor to kill. At the thought of this, she hurriedly took out a token with 5 colored auspicious clouds engraved on it from her spatial ring. She channeled her true essence into it. The auspicious cloud token lit up with a dazzling glow and turned into a sword-like stream of light. It flew toward Cloud Spirit Palace at an unbelievable speed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. High up in the sky, the ancient demon emperor saw Yun Yao use the auspicious cloud token with his own eyes, but he did not care at all. He looked down at Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao with a disdainful sneer on his face. He said in a thunderous voice, "Ji Tianqing, we meet again." Ji Tianqing glared at him angrily. He was secretly accumulating power in his body. He was on his guard and did not answer. "Ji Tianqing, if it weren't for the existence of the sword spirit, I wouldn't even bother to look at an insignificant ant like you." The demon emperor sneered with a confident expression. "Ji Tianqing, if it weren't for the existence of the sword spirit, I wouldn't even bother to look at you. Today, I am here to take your life personally. You should be proud of yourself. Even if you die, your name will go down in history." Ji Tianqing saw that the devilish emperor was not in a hurry to make a move. He would rather stall for time and wait for reinforcements. He glared at the devilish emperor coldly and shouted in a deep voice, "Devilish emperor, don't be so arrogant. This is Zhongzhou. How dare you come to Zhongzhou personally? Aren't you afraid that you will be besieged by all the powerhouses in the world and die here?" The devilish emperor looked down at him with disdain and shouted arrogantly, "In the entire Tianxin continent, who can fight with me? All the powerhouses in Zhongzhou? Haha, they must have not forgotten the fear of being dominated by me 1,000 years ago." Ji Tianqing frowned as a cold light surged in his eyes. Yun Yao looked up at the devilish emperor and shouted fiercely, "Ancient demon emperor, we have already expected that you would come to Zhongzhou and take the opportunity to cause trouble. Do you think we are not prepared? The god masters of the imperial residence are waiting for you to walk right into their trap." Yun Yao was just bluffing to intimidate the ancient demon emperor. She did not hope to scare the devilish emperor away. She only hoped to stall for time until the powerhouses of Cloud Soul Palace came to help. However, the ancient demon emperor glanced at her and sneered even more disdainfully. "You have already prepared? Then why did you ask Cloud Soul Palace for help? Could it be that you think that your useless father and grandfather can stop this emperor? What a joke! As for the imperial residence, Zhongzhou City is already in chaos. Those god masters can't even take care of themselves. Why would they come to save you?" Hearing what he said, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's expressions changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with worry. The two of them immediately understood that the devilish emperor had come to kill them personally. He had even arranged for the devilish clan to cause trouble in Zhongzhou City, to stall the god masters of the imperial residence. The Nephilim emperor had been scheming for a long time. At this moment, the devilish emperor looked at the two of them with a mocking smile and said coldly, "Today, I will start a massacre and kill all of you." Chapter 910. As soon as the Nephilim king finished his sentence, he released an endless amount of blood-red light from his body and spread in all directions. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, the blood-red light shrouded an area with a radius of 100 miles. It sealed the entire area and turned it into a huge blood-red light cage. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, the 800 guards and maids, as well as the mountains and the vast forest, were all trapped in the cage and could not escape. The Nephilim king waved his hand and shot out dozens of blood-red light beams. They sprayed towards the bridal procession like spiritual snakes. Bang! 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 Instantly, more than 60 spiritual snake-like blood-red light beams penetrated the chests of more than 60 guards and maids on the spot. The blood-red light flashed and blood-curdling screams reverberated in the sky. The spiritual snake-like blood-red light beams devoured the flesh and souls of many guards and maids. They turned into blood-red water beams and connected to the Nephilim king's hand like ropes. In the blink of an eye, more than 60 guards and maids were turned into skeletons. Their flesh and souls were all devoured by the Nephilim king. Their red robes and long skirts were torn to shreds by the wind and drifted down from the sky. One after another, gray skeletons fell from the sky into the forest, making muffled sounds. More than 60 young lives were turned into skeletons in the blink of an eye. This scene was so horrifying that it made one's hair stand on end. More than 700 guards and maids witnessed the entire process with their own eyes. They were scared out of their wits and screamed in terror. The Nephilim king stretched his hand gently and revealed a joyful expression. He muttered to himself, "The taste of fear and blood. I haven't tasted it in a long time. The flesh and souls of young people are the best delicacies. I won't get tired of it even after thousands of years." Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were so furious that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets when they saw the Nephilim king's brutality. Murderous intent surged from their bodies. "Nephilim king, you cruel and heartless devil, you deserve to die thousands of times. Even if all the water in the world is poured, it will not be able to wash away your bloody sins." As they shouted, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao launched their attacks at the Nephilim king in the sky. Red Dragon Flash. Ji Tianxing unleashed all his power and released a huge flaming sword that was more than 30 meters long. It shot towards the Nephilim king like a fiery dragon. Yun Yao drew her cold moon sword and stabbed dozens of sword radiances towards the Nephilim king. However, the Devil Emperor turned a blind eye to the two's attacks, not taking them seriously at all. The Sky Barbaric Demonic Commander, who was standing behind him, dashed out in a flash and stood in front of the Demonic Emperor. "How dare you show me your incompetence skills?" Sky Barbarian Demon Commander bellowed scornfully. He waved his hands and unleashed two giant blood-red palms, slapping toward Red Dragon Flash and the cold light sword light. The huge bloody palm and the sword light collided with each other with a loud bang, causing a series of muffled bangs to ring out. The Nem King and the of the Nephilim King Demonic of King the power of the two flaming palms did not diminish. They hit the bridal sedan where Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were. With a loud boom, the luxurious flower carriage made of gold and jade was smashed into pieces on the spot, exploding into pieces that filled the sky. Countless flowers were smashed into powder. The thousands of gems embedded in the bridal sedan were also scattered. Although the bridal sedan had a defensive array, it could not withstand the Demonic King's attack, and was destroyed. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao reacted quickly and retreated before the flaming palms hit them. Otherwise, the two of them would have been injured by the flaming palms. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao retreated 100 meters away. They stood in the sky and looked at the Demonic King with fear in their eyes. Based on the power of the flaming palms, Ji Tianxing could tell that the Demonic King was more powerful than Zhou Shuai. He was at least in the 5th or 6th tier of the soul-refining realm. At this moment, Jiang Chun, the leader of the guards, saw that the bridal sedan team was in chaos. Countless guards and maids were running away in panic. He was instantly filled with anger. His blood boiled, and he was filled with murderous intent. He pulled out his sword and pointed it at the Demonic King. He shouted, "Guards, listen to my order. Attack the Demonic King with all your might. Protect Master and Miss Yin." The guards of Tianxing Palace trembled. They instinctively pulled out their weapons and attacked the Demonic King together. One of the 300 guards of Cloud Spirit Palace stepped forward. He pulled out his sword and shouted, "The Demonic King is here. Whether we fight or not, we can't escape death. We martial artists swear to protect the dignity of our people. We will never bow to the Demonic King, even if we have to die." The majestic and solemn voice turned into rolling sound waves that reverberated fiercely in the sky. The guards and maids were instantly infected by the leader's hot-bloodedness. The fear in the hearts of the hundreds of martial artists dissipated. They were all filled with murderous intent. Under the leadership of Jiang Chun and the leader of the guards, all the martial artists raised their arms and shouted. They rode on their spirit beasts and birds, and charged at the Demonic King, without any regard for their own safety. Although the hundreds of martial artists were only at the origin core realm, and only a few had reached the sky origin realm, they were all aware that the demonic king of demonic king and demonic king had killed the demonic king. However, everyone understood that the area within a radius of 50 kilometers had been sealed off by the blood-red light. There was nowhere for them to run. Since they were going to die either way, they would rather fight the demonic king and die on the spot than be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered by the demonic king. Kill! Let's fight the demonic king. Protect Miss Yin with our lives. We have no regrets even if we die for Master Demonic King. Human disciples will never yield to the demonic king. More than 700 martial artists were shouting themselves hoarse. They brandished their weapons and slashed at the demonic king and demonic king, attacking the demonic king and demonic king from all sides. The sky within a 20-mile radius was instantly illuminated by the brilliance of the demonic king's true yuan. The demonic king and the demonic king stood proudly in the sky. They smiled contemptuously and pitifully when they saw the martial artists charging at them, without any regard for their own safety. A bunch of ants who don't know what's good for them. How pitiful. Lowly insects of the human race. Since you want to die, Bunchwai will fulfill your wish. The demonic king waved his hand as he sneered. More than 100 blood-red light pillars shot at the martial artists like demonic snakes. The blood-red demonic snakes instantly destroyed the sword and saber lights in the sky. They pierced through the martial artists' chests and crushed their hearts. The blood-red demonic snakes devoured their flesh and souls, turning them into skeletons that fell from the sky. After devouring the flesh and souls of more than 100 martial artists, the demonic king's body glowed with blood-red light. He became more excited and bloodthirsty. The demonic king of the demonic king's body glowed with blood-red light. He dashed into the martial artists like an ancient ferocious beast and started a massacre. Hundreds of martial artists attacked him one after another, creating muffled sounds. However, they were unable to break through his protective blood-red light. He waved his palms and slashed out a huge blood-red light blade. However, it killed the martial artists, sending body parts and blood flying everywhere. Chapter 9:11. This battle was destined to be a one-sided massacre. Hundreds of martial artists charged toward the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and the Demon King. For the faith in their hearts, as well as for their loyalty and dignity, everyone threw caution to the wind and charged forward fearlessly. However, even if they attacked with all their might, they could not hurt the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and the Demon King at all. The difference between a soul refinement realm martial artist and a primordial core martial artist was like the difference between a burly man and a toddler. No matter how many children there were, how could they defeat the burly man? On the other hand, the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and the Demon King's counterattacks were so powerful that they could destroy heaven and earth. Streaks of blood-red blades streaked across the sky and slashed into the crowd, decapitating countless cultivators and tearing them to shreds. Pieces of flesh and broken limbs mixed together, sprinkling down from the sky, splashing out a rain of blood. The sky was filled with a dark red mist of blood, and the vast forest on the ground was also dyed red by blood. One after another, the guards and maids were killed by the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and the Demon King. Moreover, as the Demon King killed the martial artists, he also devoured their blood, flesh, and souls. The martial artists that were killed by him were basically turned into skeletons. They died horribly. Ji Tianxing and Yin Yao also attacked with all their might. They released powerful killer moves to attack the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and the Demon King. However, their killer moves could not cause any substantial damage to the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander and the Demon King. The two of them were furious and anxious. They were extremely worried. They knew that they were no match for the Demon King and the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander, but they could not abandon their guards and maids and run away alone. However, if they continued to fight, the outcome was already decided. Everyone would die on the spot. The two of them were extremely conflicted. They could only pray that reinforcements would arrive soon. As time passed, the battle continued. The number of guards and maids was decreasing rapidly. In a quarter of an hour at most, the the hundreds of guards and maids would be killed. Even more than half of the spirit beasts and birds that everyone rode were killed. There were also a dozen spirit beasts whose flesh, blood, and souls were devoured by the Devil Emperor. They turned into skeletons and scattered in the forest. Jiang Chun and Yin Er were both seriously injured. Their bodies were stained with blood, and their hair was disheveled. They looked very miserable. The two of them secretly discussed for a while before they quietly left the crowd and rushed towards Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. Jiang Chun flew to Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao's side and advised them anxiously. Domain Lord Miss Yin, the situation is not good. You can't continue to tangle with the Demon Emperor. Domain Lord and Miss Yin, please break out of the encirclement immediately and take the opportunity to escape. We will protect you with our lives. Yin Er also advised. Senior brother Tianxing, senior sister, we can't delay any longer. I'm afraid that before the reinforcements arrive, we will all be killed by the Devil Emperor. Where there's life, there's hope. As long as the two of you can escape, there will be opportunities for revenge in the future. Ji Tianxing immediately frowned and said in a deep voice, how could I not understand this? But I can't leave you behind. If we have to leave together. Yun Yao also nodded and said in a serious tone, the Devil Emperor has set up a divine soul realm and sealed off the area within 100 miles. With our strength, there's no way we can escape. The only thing we can do now is to stubbornly hold on and wait for the reinforcements from Cloud Spirit Palace. Jiang Chun said anxiously, but this place is too far away from Cloud Spirit Palace. Even if Palace Master Yin and Miracle Dr. Bailey come to rescue us, it will take at least 2 hours. We won't be able to hold on for more than 2 hours before we are all killed. Yun Yao was suddenly speechless, and her eyes were also filled with deep anxiety. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a while. Then, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. No matter what, I have to give it my all. I can't let the Devil Emperor kill us all. After saying that, he turned his head and looked at the battlefield in the sky. More than 300 martial artists were desperately besieging the Devil Emperor and the Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander. More than half of the wedding procession had been killed and injured. Only about 300 martial artists were left. The intensity of the battle was evident. The Devil Emperor stood high in the sky with a cold smile on his face. He turned a blind eye to the martial artists who were besieging him. He kept waving his palms and sending out bloody demonic snakes to devour the martial artists' flesh and souls. Hundreds of martial artists attacked him with their swords and sabers like a rainstorm. However, he was surrounded by an invisible divine soul power. When the swords and sabers collided with the divine soul power, they would shatter and collapse. The Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander was like a prehistoric beast. He was rampaging in the sky. Everywhere he passed, there was a bloody explosion. Countless martial artists were smashed into pieces. He seemed to enjoy the feeling of crushing and slaughtering his martial artists. He kept laughing excitedly. When Ji Tianxing saw this, he was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Murderous intent surged from his body. Without hesitation, he took out the territorial master's golden seal and infused it with his true yuan. The seal of mountains and rivers expanded to the size of a house, with a radius of 20 meters. Seal of mountains and rivers keep, he shouted and activated the power of the seal of mountains and rivers. It released a thick golden light that covered more than 20 martial artists, who were charging at the martial artists. Swoosh! A powerful devouring power burst out, and instantly sucked the guards into the space of the seal of mountains and rivers. Seeing this, Yun Yao quickly shouted, everyone, don't make unnecessary sacrifices. Come back. However, most of the martial artists did not hear her, because of the loud noise in the sky. Everyone was determined to die. They charged at the Devil Emperor and the Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander, without any intention of retreating. Ji Tianxing had no choice but to activate the seal of mountains and rivers. He sucked more and more martial artists into the seal of mountains and rivers. When he sucked the fourth group of martial artists into the seal of mountains and rivers, the Devil Emperor in the sky was finally angry. The Devil Emperor stared at Ji Tianxing coldly. Purple flames were burning in his eyes. His entire body was bursting with murderous intent. Little bastard. I was just about to enjoy the taste of flesh and soul. How dare you ruin it? I wanted to let you live a little longer, and let you know what despair is. Since you can't wait to die, I'll send you to heaven now. As he spoke, the Devil Emperor manipulated the power of his divine soul territory and released a bloody light that covered the sky. It condensed into 4 bloody demonic dragons that were 1,000 meters long and charged at Ji Tianxing. Roar! The 4 bloody demonic dragons roared in a frenzied and bloodthirsty manner. They charged at Su Mo with the power to destroy everything. Ji Tianxing sensed that something was wrong. His expression changed. He quickly put away the seal of mountains and rivers and tried to retreat. However, his speed was still too slow. Bang! 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 In an instant, the 4 bloody demonic dragons hit him from different directions. There was an earth-shattering sound. Chapter 9:12. Ji Tianxing had managed to close his golden wings in time to protect himself before the 4 bloody demonic dragons arrived. But he was still hit by the 4 demonic dragons. He fell from the sky and crashed into the forest below. Bam! 100-meter-wide crater was formed on the ground, and dust flew everywhere. The loud rumbling sound reverberated in the sky for a long time before dissipating. Yin Yao, Yin and Jiang Chun were extremely worried when they saw this. They quickly flew toward the crater. Tianxing, senior brother Tianxing. When the 3 of them arrived near the crater, they saw Ji Tianxing lying at the bottom of the crater. Half of his body was buried in the dust. His golden wings had dimmed, and his red wedding robe was tattered. His hair was disheveled, and his face was stained with blood. Fortunately, he was only slightly injured. His life wasn't in danger. He struggled to get up, flew out of the crater, and returned to the sky. The Demon King looked down at him like a cat playing with a mouse. He sneered, "Ji Tianxing, have you tasted pain and despair?" Ji Tianxing glared at him. He raised his head firmly and unyieldingly. His entire body was bursting with murderous intent. He didn't waste time talking. He fought back with action. Demon Sealing Palm. He used the White Heart Demon Suppression Art. Golden light surged all over his body. He waved his hand and unleashed a giant golden palm that blotted out the sun. It slammed toward the Demon King. The giant palm was filled with righteous energy. It emitted a holy and dazzling golden light, dispersing the bloody light and demonic aura in the sky. The Demon King frowned when he saw this. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Hee, interesting. Unfortunately, you're still far from Kenshin's level. As he spoke, the Demon King raised his hand and formed a giant flaming fist. He slammed it down from the sky. Bam! The giant golden palm and the flaming fist collided, creating an earth-shattering explosion. Both of them exploded at the same time, turning into violent shockwaves that spread out in all directions. Ji Tianxing's face turned even more solemn when he saw that his ultimate move was easily neutralized. He once again exerted all of his strength and charged toward the demonic emperor. Demon Slaying Sword. The holy golden light condensed into a heaven-splitting sword that was over 100 meters long. Imbued with an overwhelming aura of righteousness, it sliced through the sky and pierced toward the demon emperor. The demon emperor was still standing proudly in the sky, not taking Ji Tianxing seriously at all. He waved his hand casually and unleashed a bloody blade that could split the sky and the earth. It shattered the demon-slaying sword into pieces. Ji Tianxing had no choice but to erupt with his strongest power, using the final move of the White Heart Devil Subduing Art. The Great Tao is imperfect, the pure heart is pure. The 3 pure ones transform into Qi, the mysterious sky demon suppression. He stretched out his arms and drew out a profound seal. After images of arms filled the sky, and his entire body surged with dazzling golden light. A short while later, when he had accumulated his power to the limit, he finally unleashed it and swung it toward the demon emperor with all his might. Boom! With a loud boom, the holy golden light exploded and spread out in all directions, dispelling all of the demonic qi and bloody light in the sky. The area within a radius of several dozen kilometers was enveloped by the dazzling golden light. More than half of the evil demonic qi in the world was dispelled, and even the demon emperor's spiritual domain was affected. The bloody light in the sky dimmed significantly. The demon emperor was also engulfed by the holy golden light. The bloody light and demonic chi around his body were all dispelled and purified. He frowned, and a thick sense of hatred and killing intent flashed across his eyes. What he loathed and hated the most was this holy golden aura. Bastard, you're courting death. The demon emperor was enraged. He waved his palms and used a secret technique of the demonic Tao. Demonic soul hurricane. His palms unleashed boundless black light, which condensed into a black hurricane that was over 1,000 meters tall. The black hurricane was imbued with a thick aura of death and unleashed an extremely violent power. Whoosh! 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 The demonic soul hurricane swept across the sky, instantly devouring all of the golden light in the sky. Everything in the hurricane's path was devoured, including the many guards and maids, as well as the spirit beasts and birds they rode. The terrifying devouring power swept everyone and the spirit beasts and birds into the hurricane. In the blink of an eye, they were shredded into pieces of flesh and blood, turning into a rain of blood. In just 10 breaths, the demonic soul hurricane had swept the sky clean. The holy golden light that covered the sky disappeared. More than 200 guards and maids, as well as dozens of spirit beasts and birds, were all devoured by the hurricane. The sky regained its calm. There were only 20 or so people left. Among them were the demon emperor, the heaven barbaric demon commander, Ji Tianxing, Yunyao, Yin and Jiangchen. There were also more than 20 guards who were lucky enough to survive, as well as a few spirit beasts and birds. At this point, almost all of the 800 people in the wedding procession had been killed. The luckiest people were the dozens of martial practitioners that Ji Tianxing had taken into the seal of mountains and rivers. Such a horrifying outcome caused all of them to be filled with terror, grief, and indignation, and their eyes had turned completely red. If it was possible, everyone wanted to cut the demon emperor and the heaven barbaric demon commander into pieces. However, that was just wishful thinking. The demon emperor and the heaven barbaric demon commander were so powerful that everyone felt hopeless. The demon emperor stood proudly in the sky, looking at Ji Tianxing mockingly. He sneered and said, "Ji Tianxing, you must be very angry and desperate, right? Ha ha ha. If I don't let you die in extreme despair, how can I relieve the hatred in my heart?" Ji Tianxing stood high in the sky, staring at the demon emperor coldly. He shouted in a deep and cold voice, "Ancient demon emperor, you and I cannot exist under the same sky." The demon emperor sneered contemptuously. "You are just a worm? What a joke. I'll let you have a taste of being devoured by 1,000 demons right now. I'll let you be tortured to death in front of the person you love." As soon as he finished speaking, the demon emperor waved his palms and unleashed a bloody light that covered the sky. Countless abyss devil phantoms appeared amidst the dark red light. Tens of thousands of hideous and terrifying abyss devil heads appeared. All the demons opened their bloody mouths and bared their fangs, pouncing on Ji Tianxing crazily. Ji Tianxing was about to be drowned in the bloody light and surrounded by tens of thousands of demons. At this critical moment, an earth-shattering sound suddenly came from the sky not far away. Boom! As the loud sound exploded, a huge hole appeared in the bloody light curtain 30 miles away from them. A dazzling white light flashed through the hole like lightning, piercing through the sky and heading straight for Ji Tianxing. When the dazzling white light came closer, everyone could see clearly that it was a 1,000-meter-long divine dragon with a blazing white body. Roar! The holy and powerful white dragon instantly flew above Ji Tianxing's head and slammed into the bloody light. Bam! 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 The demon emperor's sanguine light was actually shattered by the holy white dragon, turning into a sky full of sanguine light fragments that scattered in all directions. Ji Tianxing's crisis was averted. The holy white dragon circled in the sky and stared at the demon emperor angrily. Chapter 913. When Yunyao, Yin and the rest saw the three figures, they looked as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. Everyone's spirits were lifted, and the flames of hope were burning in their eyes. There were 3 people who had arrived in time. One of them was a white-haired old man with an air of immortality, and the other was a dignified middle-aged couple. Without a doubt, the three of them were Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi. At the most critical moment, they had arrived in time. Yun Zhongqi flew into the sky and glared at the Demon King and the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander. The holy and majestic white dragon immediately flew to his side and circled behind him. Bailey Ningsu's face was filled with anxiety and worry. She flew to Yun Yao's side and checked on Yun Yao's injuries. Yao Yao, are you hurt? Are your injuries serious? Miracle Dr. Bailey's face was gloomy, and his heart was filled with worry. His eyes swept across the entire place, and when he saw the situation, his face changed, and his eyes were filled with rage. Out of a team of 800 people, only 20 or so are still alive. What a cruel demon! Damn it! They deserve to die. Seeing that Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were only injured and not in any danger, he was slightly relieved. He thought to himself, luckily we arrived in time. Yao Yao and Tianqing are fine. If we had arrived any later, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Therefore, he quickly told Bailey Ningsu, Ningsu, take care of Yao Yao and Tianqing. Leave the two demons to us. After that, he flew to the sky and stood not far from Yun Zhongqi, facing the Demon King and the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander. Bailey Ningsu checked on Yun Yao's injuries and quickly healed her. Ji Tianqing finally had a chance to catch his breath. He quickly absorbed the energy of the green light precious tree to heal his injuries and restore his true core strength. At the same time, the Demon King and the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander looked at Yun Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey with disdain. The Demon Emperor said in a mocking tone, Hee, I didn't expect you to come so quickly, but that's fine as well. I'll capture all of you in one fell swoop and kill all of you. And I won't have to make another trip to Cloud Soul Palace. The Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander licked his lips ferociously and revealed a bloodthirsty smirk. I've long heard of the great names of Miracle Dr. Bailey and Palace Master Yin. It's a pity that I've never had the chance to compete with you. Bun Shui will crush your skulls today and drink your blood. After saying that, a bloody light surged between his palms and two broad, thick, and dark sabers appeared. Yun Zhongqi was brimming with murderous intent as he bellowed with a dark expression, Ancient Demon Emperor, you really don't know what's good for you. How dare you sneak into Zhongzhou to cause trouble and attack my Cloud Spirit Palace? I'd like to see just how much strength you've recovered to actually dare to be so arrogant. Divine Dr. Bailey's hair and beard fluttered in the wind. 5 Divine Soul Dharma eyes appeared behind him as he shouted with a dignified voice. This old man has been practicing medicine for hundreds of years. I've saved countless people, but I've rarely killed anyone. Today, I'm going to avenge the dead disciples of Cloud Spirit Palace and kill this evil demon. The demonic emperor's face was filled with disdain as he laughed arrogantly. Ha 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 ha. I've been away for thousands of years. It seems like you've forgotten what fear is. How dare 2 juniors be so arrogant and blaspheme my majesty? You deserve to die. After saying that, he waved his palms and shot out a bloody light beam that filled the sky. It was like a flood that poured down on Yun Zhongqi and Divine Dr. Bailey. Blood Sky Massacre. Suddenly, the sky was covered by a bloody light and turned into a world of bloody light. The Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander bellowed as well. He waved his giant sabers and charged toward Divine Dr. Bailey with murderous intent. Old man, Bun Shui will kill you first. Let's see if you, the so-called miracle doctor, can save your own life. Soul-sealing Battle Royal Saber. The Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander waved his black saber and slashed out 99 bloody light sabers that descended from the sky toward Divine Dr. Bailey. The dark red light and the berserk and devastating saber chi immediately encased the surrounding area for dozens of kilometers. Yun Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey both roared angrily. They unleashed their trump cards and counterattacked valiantly. White Dragon's Roar Kill. 1,000 layers of illusionary spirits. Yun Zhongqi cast a spell with both hands and unleashed the divine spear, White Dragon's Roar. He controlled the divine white dragon to attack the demonic emperor. Divine Dr. Bailey also unleashed his ultimate skill. He waved his sleeves and shot out a spiritual light that filled the sky as he fought the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander. The 4 Spirit Cultivation Realm elites fought in the sky. Instantly, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and the moon dimmed as they fought. The blinding white light, the bloody light, and the five-colored spiritual light completely covered the sky. The area within a radius of hundreds of miles turned into a colorful but chaotic world. The figures of the four elites were all covered. They flashed back and forth in the sky, colliding and separating. Rumble! Loud rumbling sounds filled the air and reverberated endlessly. In just a few breaths, the aftermath of the battle between the four elites had destroyed everything within a radius of hundreds of miles. A few mountains and mountains, as well as the vast forest, had all collapsed into barren land. The ground was filled with ravines and craters. It was a scene of devastation. After the two sides exchanged a few blows, the destructive shockwaves of the battle actually shattered the blood-light curtain that enveloped an area of 100 miles. The four of them stopped attacking temporarily. They stood high in the sky, facing each other from 20 miles away as they panted secretly. Yin Zhongqi had 2 new wounds on his body. Blood was flowing out, and he was panting heavily. The holy white dragon had turned back into a white dragon spear. He held it in his hand, and it shone with a holy white light. Divine Dr. Bailey was also badly injured. There were a few hideous wounds on his chest and back. His hair was also stained with blood. There was no doubt that the two of them were no match for the demonic emperor and the sky barbarian demonic commander, even if they joined forces. However, the heaven barbarian demon commander was also badly injured. There were at least a dozen wounds all over his body. There was even a fist-sized hole in his chest that was bleeding profusely. Even the demon emperor's protective bloody light had been destroyed. There was a long and narrow wound on his shoulder, and purple demonic blood was seeping out. His face was extremely gloomy, and his body was surging with crimson murderous intent. It was like flames rising from his body. Invisible spiritual power spread out, causing black clouds to surge and demonic fog to fill the sky. He frowned and stared at Yin Zhongqi. He shouted in a venomous voice, "You lowly beast, how dare you injure me? You're dead. No one in this world can save you. I'll tear you to pieces." Yin Zhongqi endured his injuries and pain as he stared coldly at the demon emperor. He growled, "Demon emperor, you are too arrogant. You've only recovered to the 7th level of the soul refinement realm, and you dare to cause trouble in the central state? Do you really think there's no one in the central state who can stop you? So what? It's enough to kill all of you." The demon emperor shouted angrily. He waved his palms with a ferocious expression and used a demonic technique. Apocalyptic demonic sword. Following his angry roar, 6 huge black cloud vortexes appeared in the sky above the surging black clouds. Chapter 9:14. 6 gigantic black cloud vortexes appeared like holes in the sky. Each of the purple demonic swords contained the power to destroy the world. Demonic Tao characters and symbols shimmered on the 10,000-foot-tall sword, as if they came from the distant ancient era. The demonic emperor's ultimate move was like a demonic sword summoned from ancient times. It was going to destroy this world. When the 6 demonic swords descended from the sky, the heaven and earth within a radius of 100 miles were sealed, as if it was frozen in ice. Ji Tianxing, Bailey Ningsu, Yun Yao, and the others were all suppressed by an invisible force. It was as if they had fallen into a quagmire and could not move. Everyone was filled with fear and despair. They could only watch as the 6 demonic swords descended. Yin Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey were stronger. At the critical moment, they unleashed their strongest power and finally broke free from the shackles. The two of them fought back with all their might and used their most powerful ultimate moves. Dragon battle in the star field. 100 rivers gather to the sea. All living creatures come to life. Yin Zhongqi activated the white dragon roar and turned into a sacred white dragon. He charged toward the demonic swords. Miracle Dr. Bailey's robe fluttered. He spat out blood and used a forbidden secret technique. He gathered the power of 100 rivers and thousands of mountains to form a holy light that blocked the attack of the demonic swords. In the next moment, the 6 demonic swords finally descended. Boom, boom, boom. The heaven and earth within a radius of 200 miles were drowned by the boundless purple light. If the purple light that covered the sky was the ocean, then everyone was a grain of sand in the ocean. They were drowned without a trace. They were insignificant. At this moment, everyone finally witnessed exactly how terrifying the ability of the peerless Devil Emperor that roamed freely through the ages was. Even though he had been sealed for 1,000 years and had only recovered to the 7th stage of the soul-tempering realm. However, he was once an immortal state cultivator. The ultimate secret techniques that he had mastered had the power to destroy the world. With just the people present, it was absolutely impossible for them to resist his demonic might. After a long while, the purple demonic blood light that covered the sky finally dissipated. Heaven and earth regained its clarity, and the dust that filled the sky gradually fell. He saw that the ground within a radius of 200 miles had become riddled with holes. It was a tragic sight. The mountain peak, the mountain range, and the sea of trees had all disappeared. What replaced them was a huge sinkhole, with a radius of 100 miles. After a few years, when this sinkhole was filled with water, it would become an unfathomably deep lake. The sky was completely empty. Aside from the Demon Emperor and the heavenly barbaric demon commander, everyone else had fallen into the massive crater. Yun Zhongqi knelt on one knee in the deep pit, and half of his body was buried in the mud. His head was lowered, his golden crown was broken, and his hair was messy. His long hair hung down and covered his face. Drops of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth and dripped onto the soil beneath him. The dazzling white dragon spear was stabbed into the ground beside him. It flickered with a dim light and faintly emitted a sorrowful cry. Not far away, Divine Dr. Bailey was lying in the mud. His white robe was tattered and stained with dark red blood. It was a ghastly sight. There were at least 20 wounds all over his body, and 4 of them were quite serious, almost threatening his life. Blood kept flowing out of his nose and mouth. His eyes were half closed, and they were blurry. It was obvious that he was severely injured and was at the end of his rope. Further away, at the edge of the huge crater, Bailey Ningsu, Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, Yin and the others were also lying on the ground in a mess. All of them were severely injured. Their bodies were covered in blood, and they looked miserable. However, Yun Zhongqi and Divine Dr. Bailey had helped them block a few of the demonic swords and bore most of the power. Their injuries were not life-threatening, and their lives were not in danger. Jiang Chun, the leader of the guards, was also lying on the ground, covered in blood. He was on the verge of death. As for the 20 guards, maids, and a few spiritual beasts and birds, they had all been killed by the remaining power of the demonic swords and disappeared from the world. What a tragic scene! High in the sky, the Demon Emperor and the heavenly barbaric demon commander looked down and laughed wildly. Ha ha ha! How can you ant-like weaklings fight against this emperor? The heavenly barbaric demon commander had forgotten about his injuries and pain. He waved his saber excitedly and laughed. Worms of the human race, tremble before the demonic power of the demon emperor. Despair. In the huge crater, Ji Tianxing was the first to get up. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and straightened his back. He looked up at the demon emperor and the heavenly barbaric demon commander in the sky, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. His injuries were not serious, and he still had half of his ethereal force and combat power left. He could still fight. He still had many trump cards that he had not used, such as the soul-reaping bell, the green light treasure tree, and the heaven-mending pearl. He was stubborn and wanted to fight again. However, just as he was about to fly into the sky and fight the demon emperor, Yun Zhongqi's voice came into his ears. Tianxing, don't be rash. The demon emperor is too powerful, and we are no match for him. Your master and I will hold the demon emperor back. You and Yao Yao should leave this place and go to Zhongzhou to ask for reinforcements. Only the god-tier masters from the imperial residence can defeat the demon emperor. Go now. Ji Tianxing's body stiffened, and he turned to look at Yun Zhongqi. Yun Zhongqi stood up slowly, and his body was glowing with white light. The dirt on his body was shaken off. The 6 godly soul Dharma eyes lit up behind him again. He held the blazing white dragon spear in his right hand, and his body was once again filled with the majestic aura of a soul-refining cultivator. He looked at the sky proudly, and in a flash, He flew into the sky and charged at the demon emperor again with his spear. In Ji Tianxing's eyes, Yin Zhongqi's back was majestic, and there was a hint of sadness in it. Ji Tianxing knew that Yin Zhongqi was right. Only with the help of the god-tier masters would they have a chance to survive. However, he did not want to leave everyone behind and run away alone. At this moment, Miracle Dr. Bailey also got up from the crater. He used a secret technique to suppress his injuries. Then he flew into the sky and charged at the demon emperor again. Before he attacked, he took a deep look at Ji Tianxing. His eyes were filled with hope and expectation. Although he did not say anything, Ji Tianxing understood the look in his eyes. Miracle Dr. Bailey also hoped that he would run away with Yin Yao. They could not stay here and wait for their deaths. Immediately after, Bailey Ningsu gave Yin Yao a few words of advice, then unsheathed her sword and charged into the sky without any regard for her own safety. When Ji Tianxing saw this, he clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He bit his lips so hard that blood flowed out. He hated the demon emperor so much. Yin Yao quickly flew over and grabbed his arm. She persuaded, Tianxing, we can't do anything even if we stay here. We can't hurt the demon emperor at all. Don't hesitate anymore. Father, mother, and grandfather will hold the demon emperor back. Let's leave this place and ask the god-tier masters for help. Ji Tianxing gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind. He nodded. Chapter 9:15. Ji Tianxing flew into the sky with Yin Yao. His heart was filled with anger and humiliation as he tried to escape. He hated himself for not having enough time to grow, and for not being strong enough. He could only watch helplessly as the demonic king slaughtered his friends and family. If he could reach the peak of martial arts one day, and become a supreme primordial soul cultivator, he would kill the demonic king, and wipe out all the demonic tribes. However, just as he was forcefully suppressing his hatred and killing intent, he took Yin Yao and flew rapidly. The sky barbaric demonic commander in the sky suddenly turned into a beam of bloody light, and blocked his and Yin Yao's path. Ha 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 ha. Little bastard, you still want to run away? Dream on. The sky barbarian demon commander laughed wildly, as he waved his sabers, with a ferocious expression. Dozens of 100-meter-long blood-red light blades were slashed toward Yi Chen. Damn it! Ji Tianxing's expression changed as he cursed. He quickly used his ultimate skill to block the sky barbaric demonic commander's attack. Earth King Shield. He channeled all the power he had accumulated throughout his life to form a yellow shield to protect himself and Yin Yao. Bam! 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 Amidst a muffled sound, more than a dozen giant blood-red blades struck the Earth Emperor shield, shattering it into pieces. Both he and Yin Yao spat out mouthfuls of blood as they flew backwards, falling from the sky. Ji Tianxing, it's time for you to die. The sky barbaric demonic commander sneered as he waved his black saber and chased after him. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing pushed Yin Yao aside and pushed her thousands of meters away. Yao Yao, run away and get reinforcements from Zhongzhou. I'll hold this demonic commander back. He instructed Yin Yao with his spiritual sense before he took out the soul-reaping bell and struck it at the sky barbaric demonic commander. He activated the black bell with his true essence, and it immediately turned into a huge black bronze bell, emitting a mysterious black light of death. The sky barbaric demonic commander was fearless as he waved his sabers and created a huge net of bloody light. Pung pung pung. The soul-reaping bell slammed into the blood-light saber net, shattering the saber light. The saber net also collapsed immediately. However, the soul-reaping bell was also bounced back. It emitted a buzzing sound and flashed with black light. The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal did not take the opportunity to pursue Ji Tianxing. Instead, he pounced toward Yin Yao in a flash and slashed down with his saber. Today none of you can escape. All of you will die. He roared and slashed out 200-meter-long blood-red saber lights toward Yin Yao. Yin Yao had no time to dodge, let alone defend herself. She was only at the 3rd level of the Sky Origin stage. She was so weak in front of the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander, who was at the 5th level of the Spirit Refinement stage. At this critical moment, she could only pull out the pearl hairpin from her hair bun and crazily pour her true essence into it. This hairpin was actually a defensive magical artifact. Bailey Ningsu had prepared it for her, letting her wear it at all times to save her life. Shwa! The pearl hairpin emitted a dazzling light that condensed into a shield, protecting her. Bang! The next moment, the two blood-red saber lights struck her, shattering the shield and sending her flying. Uffed! While she was still in the air, she opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The pearl hairpin shattered on the spot. She was also severely injured. She fell from the sky and fell toward the deep pit below. Yao Yao! Ji Tianqing saw this with his own eyes, but he could not save her in time. Seeing that Yun Yao was severely injured and spitting out blood, he was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He rushed toward Yun Yao without caring about anything else, trying to catch her. However, the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal rushed toward him again and attacked him with his saber. Ji Tianqing, your wife is going to die, and you will also die without a burial ground. Ban Shui will destroy your souls. You can't even be a ghost couple anymore. Ji Tianqing was stopped by the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal. He could only watch as Yun Yao fell from the sky and could not save her. He was so angry that his eyes turned red. The murderous aura that surged out of his body condensed into red flames. He was extremely angry. Damn you, Demon Marshal, I'm going to kill you. Ji Tianqing roared angrily. He activated all of his power and summoned the sword embryo in his body, without caring about anything else. Sword of Judgment. The sword embryo turned into a giant golden sword that was 100 meters long. It emitted a dazzling golden light and charged toward the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal. Hee, have you gone mad? Have you lost all hope? The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal laughed when he saw that Chun Fan was enraged. But it's useless. The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal shouted angrily. He waved his devil saber again and used his secret skill. Ultimate King's Saber. Endless blood-red light gushed out of the black devil saber and formed 8 giant blood-red sabers that were 100 meters long. They slashed toward the Sword of Judgment. Bam, bam, bam. The 8 giant blood-red sabers collided with the Sword of Judgment. There was a deafening sound. The giant sabers shattered into billions of blood-red light shards that fell from the sky like rain. The Sword of Judgment also flashed with a golden light and buzzed nonstop. The energy of the giant golden sword was depleted. It immediately shrank back into the sword embryo and flew back into Ji Tianqing's body. Apparently, Ji Tianqing could not defeat the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal even if he used the Sword of Judgment. However, he was so furious that he went berserk. He charged toward the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal and continued his attack. Thunderbolt. He suddenly opened the third eye on his forehead. Endless thunderbolts were released from his golden spirit eye. They formed a blue thunderbolt light beam and blasted toward the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal. Bam! The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal was caught off guard. He was hit by the thunderbolt light beam, and his body was engulfed by violent thunderbolts. He was sent flying 10 miles away and let out a heart-wrenching scream. When the thunderbolt light dissipated, one could see that his body was charred black with black smoke rising from it. There were dozens of wounds on his body, and black demonic blood was gushing out. The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal was injured by the thunderbolt. Although the injury was not light, it was not fatal. It was a great humiliation to him. He was so furious that he almost went berserk. He ignored his injuries and charged toward Ji Tianqing with his twin sabers. Little bastard, Ban Shui is going to skin you alive. The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal was covered in blood-red light. He waved his demonic sabers and charged toward Chun Fan like an ancient ferocious beast. Ji Tianqing did not want to be outdone. He activated the Seal of Mountains and Rivers and blasted it toward the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal. Bam! The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal's body trembled, and he was sent flying 1,000 meters away. The Seal of Mountains and Rivers had run out of energy. It was so weak that it could not be used anymore. Sky-burning palm. Ji Tianqing shouted angrily again. He raised his left hand and blasted out a huge flaming palm. The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal roared and fought back. The flaming palm was shattered into pieces. Ji Tianqing had used up all his trump cards. He was getting weaker and weaker. The Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal was wounded, but he was even more ferocious. He charged toward Chen Fan like a madman. Ji Tianqing was only at Sky Origin Stage Level 8. He was no match for the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal. He could only be killed. When he was at his most desperate moment, he suddenly heard the voice of the Burial of Heaven. Chapter 916. When Ji Tianqing heard the voice of the Burial of Heaven, he was overjoyed. Ever since the Burial of Heaven was severely injured, he had been sleeping in the Kenshin tomb. Now that more than a month had passed, the Burial of Heaven had finally woken up. He must have recovered most of his strength. Thinking of this, he extended his right palm without hesitation and pointed at the sky, releasing the black hole in the center of his palm. The black hole flew tens of thousands of feet into the sky, and immediately turned into a giant black vortex that covered dozens of miles. "Sword, come!" he yelled in an imposing manner, and his body exuded a sacred and majestic aura. Suddenly, a pitch-black ice-cold, gigantic sword flew out from the black vortex that covered the sky and the sun. Slash! Ji Tianqing waved his right palm and slapped at the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. He let out a furious roar that was filled with killing intent. The giant sword that seemed to have come from beyond the sky with boundless chilliness of death came down from the sky like the sword of the Grim Reaper. It went straight for the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. The area within dozens of miles was covered by the sword intent that suppressed the heavens and the earth. The air seemed to have frozen, and so did the space. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's momentum was blocked, and he slowed down a lot. He could not move at all. His aura was locked by the giant sword, and he felt a layer of haze of death shrouding his heart. He felt chills all over his body. Damn it! What is this move? Could it be that sword soul? The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander looked up at the sky and stared at the black sword steel that was thousands of feet tall. He was terrified. He struggled to escape, but he realized that his aura was locked by the giant sword, and he could not escape at all. Seeing the giant sword coming down, he was filled with despair. He could only use his ultimate skill to block it. Demonic blood transformation technique. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's body was covered in crimson flames. His burly body immediately turned into a giant crimson light that spread in all directions. In the next instant, the sky sword steel fell from the sky and hit the giant crimson light. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion, the heaven-reaching sword steel shattered the blood light into millions of pieces that scattered in all directions. Then, the giant sword hit the ground, turning the bottom of the pit into a bottomless ruin. The earth trembled violently, and the loud noise lasted for a long time before dissipating. The heavenly sword steel disappeared and returned to Kenshin's tomb. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was reformed from the fragments of bloody light. He flew into the sky, covered in blood. His body was swaying, and he looked quite miserable. Although he managed to preserve his life, he was severely injured by the heaven-reaching giant sword, and his strength dropped drastically. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing hurriedly went to find Yun Yao to check on her injuries. Fortunately, when she fell from the sky, she was caught by Yen. Her injuries were very serious. Her wedding dress was stained with blood. With the help of Yen, she was hiding at the edge of the battlefield to heal her injuries. Ji Tianqing hurriedly took out the green light treasure tree to help Yun Yao suppress her injuries. However, at this moment, the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander brandished his twin swords and attacked him again. "Little bastard, Ben Shui will tear you apart." The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, who was severely injured, was completely enraged. His eyes were burning with blood as he chased after Ji Tianqing desperately. Ji Tianqing did not want to implicate Yen and Yun Yao. He hurriedly rushed toward the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander and fought with him in the sky. Although the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was severely injured and only had 40% of his combat strength left, his injuries were also very serious. However, his injuries were not light, and his strength was almost depleted. He was no match for the Sky Barbaric Demon Commander. After exchanging a few blows, he was sent flying by the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, and his injuries were even more serious. At this critical moment, Burial of Heaven shouted in a deep voice, "Tianqing, take out the Black Dragon Sword." I'll possess the sword and help you fight. Ji Tianxing was instantly energized, and he quickly took out the black dragon sword. After Burial of Heaven possessed the black dragon sword, the black dragon sword suddenly became mysterious and cold, and it was 100 times sharper. Ji Tianxing held the black dragon sword in his hand, and used all his skills to fight with the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. Bam! 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 The two of them kept colliding, and there were earth-shattering explosions. After 3 blows, Burial of Heaven used the black dragon sword to perform the Outer Sky Sword, and cut off one of the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's arms. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was even more enraged by the excruciating pain. He hurriedly reformed his arm, and attacked Ji Tianxing crazily. However, Ji Tianxing had the help of Burial of Heaven. The sword technique that he used was unfathomable. It was the sword Soul Dao that he had never seen or cultivated before. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander could not do anything to Ji Tianxing. He was injured by the Black Dragon Sword again and again, and his injuries were getting worse. Just as the two of them were fighting fiercely, there was an earth-shattering explosion in the sky dozens of miles away. Ji Tianxing turned his head, and saw a devastating blood-red light exploding in the sky, covering an area of 100 miles. Yun Zhongqi, Miracle Dr. Bailey, and Bailey Ningsu all fell from the sky and crashed into the deep crater on the ground. It turned out that the Demon King had used his ultimate killer move to force the 3 of them back. Bam! 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 Yun Zhongqi and the other 2 fell from the sky and crashed into the deep crater in the ruins. There was a loud thud and dust everywhere. The 3 of them were covered in blood, and their injuries were extremely severe. Yun Zhongqi's left arm was severed at the shoulder, and there was a long slanted wound on his chest that almost cut him in half. His long hair was stained with blood, and the dragon spear in his hand had dimmed. It was obvious that he was at the end of his rope and could not fight anymore. Miracle Dr. Bailey crashed into the deep crater and was buried by the soil. His injuries were extremely severe, and he could not get up after struggling for a while. Among the 3 of them, Bailey Ningsu was the weakest, and her injuries were also the most severe. She was covered in blood, and her clothes were ragged. Blood foam kept flowing out of her nose and mouth. After falling to the ground, her body trembled, and her life force was quickly fading away. Her injuries were too severe, and she was on the verge of death. Her eyes were dim, and could close at any moment. Seeing this scene, Yun Yao's heart immediately ached, and she let out a shrill cry of grief. Mother! She ignored her injuries and flew to Bailey Ningsu's side. She hugged her and cried bitterly. Mother, how are your injuries? You must hold on. Bailey Ningsu slowly raised her bloodstained hand and held Yun Yao's wrist weakly. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. She said weakly, Yao Yao, mother is worried about you. You and Tianxing. No matter what, you must survive. Bailey Ningsu's voice trembled. After she finished speaking, she slowly closed her eyes, and her hand fell weakly to the ground. Mother! Yun Yao was heartbroken. Tears gushed out of her eyes, and she let out a heart-wrenching cry. She slowly put Bailey Ningsu down, and looked up at the Demon King in the sky. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she shouted in a hoarse voice, Demon King! You're a devil who deserves to die 1,000 times over. You demon! I'll kill you. Even if I have to die with you, I'll kill you and avenge my mother. Extreme grief and anger made her completely desperate and crazy. She flew into the sky and rushed toward the Demon King without caring about anything else. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing, Yun Zhongqi, and the others immediately cried out in alarm, their hearts burning with worry. No! Chapter 917. Ji Tianxing, Yun Zhongqi, and the others felt their hearts clench tightly. Everyone looked at Yun Yao's figure and watched her charge toward the Demon King without hesitation. They were extremely worried. However, no one was able to stop her. It was too late. The ancient demon emperor looked down at Yun Yao, and a disdainful sneer appeared on his face when he saw her charging over recklessly. Haha, so what if you're angry? In front of absolute power, you're like a moth darting into a flame. You'll be reduced to ashes. As he spoke, he waved his hand and shot out a ray of black light. Swoosh! That ray of black light, which contained an icy aura of death, was actually a pitch-black ancient bell. This ancient bell was a Dharma treasure of the demon Tao. It had a simple design, and was carved with the words and symbols of the demon race, as well as various images of demons. The pitch-black ancient bell rapidly expanded, and became as big as a house. It descended from the sky and instantly enveloped Yun Yao. Swoosh! With a flash of black light, the pitch-black ancient bell swallowed Yun Yao, and disappeared without a trace. The ancient bell flew back into the sky, and quickly shrunk to the size of a palm, before falling into the Demon King's palm. He held the ancient bell, that was the size of a small bell, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Ji Tianxing was instantly enraged when he saw this. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Demon King! You damned demon! Didn't you want the Kenshin bloodline? Your target is me. Come at me. Let go of Yin Yao." The Demon King looked at him and sneered. "Let go of her? Haha, stop dreaming. You and your wife, as well as your friends and family, all of you will die. I won't let anyone go." Then, he played with the pitch-black ancient bell in his palm and said in a mocking tone, "This is my Dharma treasure, the soul-refining bell. No matter if you're a human or a demon, no matter how powerful you are, after being suppressed by my soul-refining bell, you'll be refined into ashes within an hour. Even your soul will be reduced to ashes. Yin Yao is dead for sure. It's your turn to die now. You have to be buried with her." As soon as he finished speaking, the Demon Emperor unleashed a blood-red beam of light that descended from the sky towards Ji Tianxing. The blood-colored beam of light was like a rope, but it was also like an agile demonic snake. Its speed was as fast as a stream of light. Ji Tianxing erupted with his strongest strength and retreated as fast as lightning, but in the end, he was unable to dodge. Boom! The blood-red beam of light hit him, causing his face to turn pale. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the top of the light pillar instantly split into a dozen bloody tentacles and tied him up like ropes. The dark red blood light rope tied him up tightly, and he couldn't move at all. Immediately after, rows of sharp spikes emerged from the dark red rope and pierced deeply into his flesh, quickly absorbing his blood. His blood flowed along the dark red rope and gathered in the blood-red beam of light. The Demon King was quickly devouring it. The Demon King revealed a smug look. With a ferocious expression he shouted, "Ji Tianxing, wait till I suck your blood dry and take your Kenshin bloodline. Then you can die." Ji Tianxing's blood was rapidly draining from his body. Instantly his skin turned pale. His strength was rapidly weakening, and so was his vitality. He struggled with all his might, but he couldn't break free from the binding of the blood-red rope. "Demon King, you despicable evil bastard, you will die a horrible death." He cursed furiously, but his voice was getting hoarser and hoarser. His consciousness was also gradually fading. Seeing this, Yin Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey were so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They roared furiously. The two of them ignored their injuries and rushed into the sky with all their might. They wanted to break the blood-red beam of light and save Ji Tianxing. However, the two of them had just rushed into the sky when the Demon King casually sent out two beams of blood-red light. They vomited blood and fell from the sky into the ruins. The two of them were already heavily injured. Now that they were heavily injured, their injuries were so severe that they could no longer fight. The Demon King was rapidly devouring Ji Tianxing's blood and was about to take his Kenshin bloodline. Ji Tianxing was also on the verge of losing consciousness. He seemed to see death approaching. At this critical moment, in the sky 100 miles away, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Crack! A dazzling golden light lit up in that wide fissure. It was as dazzling as the midday sun. Swish! That dazzling golden light was a giant golden sword that was 1,000 meters long. It was wreathed in divine golden flames and contained the power to destroy the world. In the blink of an eye, the divine golden sword cut across the sky and reached the battlefield. Boom! The divine golden sword struck the blood-red beam of light with lightning-like speed, causing it to explode with a dull thud. The dark red tentacles wrapped around Ji Tianxing's body instantly collapsed and dissipated into bloody light. Ji Tianxing was no longer bound and plummeted from the sky into the ruins. At this moment, his eyes were tightly shut and his vision had turned black. He was on the verge of losing consciousness. He was completely powerless to move. He lay quietly in the ruins, unable to even crawl up. The Demon King in the sky was also sent flying 10 miles by the divine golden sword, his arms erupting with bloody light. His face instantly paled, his eyes flashing with deep fear and shock. That damned scoundrel! As expected, he still came. The Demon King gloomily cursed. His brow furrowed as he weighed the pros and cons in his mind. At this moment, the dazzling divine golden sword floated in the sky, blotting out the sky with divine light and emitting a domineering aura. The Demon King hesitated for a moment before he made up his mind. He shouted at the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander unwillingly, "Let's go!" Before he left, he glanced at Ji Tianxing and shouted angrily, "Little bastard! The next time we meet, I'll definitely take your life." With that, he turned around and fled with the severely injured Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. The two of them turned into streaks of bloody light and streaked across the sky like shooting stars. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the horizon. With the departure of the Demon King and the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander, the battle was finally over. Peace returned to the world. However, everyone was severely injured and on the verge of death. They lay miserably in the ruins, unable to make a single sound. There was complete silence. The dark clouds that blotted out the sky gradually dispersed, and the sky became clear again. The divine golden sword that floated in the sky gradually turned transparent and finally disappeared. After about 15 minutes, Miracle Dr. Bailey was the first to regain his ability to move. He used a secret technique to suppress his injuries. After taking a few soul-level elixirs, he hurried to Bailey Ningsu's side to check on her. Fortunately, Bailey Ningsu was not breathing. She was on the verge of death, but she was not really dead. Miracle Dr. Bailey heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly took out a priceless life-prolonging elixir and fed it to Bailey Ningsu. He then channeled his energy to heal her. Chapter 918. Ji Tianxing lay in the ruins for an hour, before he gradually regained consciousness. His true yuan was almost exhausted, and his injuries were so severe that his life was in danger. Fortunately, his ultimate sword physique, Greenwood spirit physique, and Kenshin bloodline gave him an extremely powerful self-healing ability. He struggled to get up and quickly took out a few pills to consume. He sat in the ruins and quickly recovered his true yuan. Dozens of miles away, at the edge of the battlefield, Yin-Er and Jiang Chun were also lying on the ground covered in blood. Although they did not participate in the battle, they were almost killed by the aftermath of the battle. A battle between spirit refinement realm experts was not something that they could participate in. They were not even qualified to watch. After an hour of recovery, the two of them regained their ability to move. They got up from the ground and hurriedly healed their injuries. Time passed quietly, and the sun in the sky gradually set to the west. Unknowingly, another hour had passed. At this moment, in the distant sky, there was a dazzling white light that was as fast as a meteor. Swoosh! In just a few breaths, the dazzling white light crossed dozens of miles in the sky and arrived above the ruins. The white light suddenly disappeared, and the figure of a human man appeared. This man looked to be in his 40s. He wore a black robe with a jade belt around his waist. Other than that, he had no other accessories. However, he did not need luxurious clothes. He had a majestic and domineering aura that looked down on the world. He also had the temperament of an otherworldly expert. He was the great divine master of the imperial residence, Divine Master Heiyu. Divine Master Heiyu stood in the sky and swept his gaze across the battlefield. He immediately saw the scene clearly. His expression was a little gloomy as he frowned. A hint of anger and worry flashed in his eyes. Swoosh! Divine Master Heiyu's figure flashed and teleported 1,000 meters away, landing beside Ji Tianxing. He scanned with his divine sense and saw that Ji Tianxing's injuries were quite serious. He was in a weakened state. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was closing his eyes to heal, he quickly reached out and shot a white light into Ji Tianxing's body. Immediately, The sacred white light wandered around Ji Tianqing's body and suppressed his internal injuries. Pfff. Ji Tianqing opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. His injuries improved a lot. He quickly ended the healing process and opened his eyes. He raised his head and saw God-tier Master Heyu beside him. He quickly stood up and bowed. He said anxiously, God-tier Master Heyu, you're finally here. On my way back to Zhongzhou with Yao Yao, I passed by this place and was intercepted by the Demon Emperor. He tried his best to use simple words to explain what had happened to Divine Master Heyu. However, before he could finish his sentence, Divine Master Black Feather raised his hand and interrupted him. Say no more. I already know. Ji Tianqing was startled. He was puzzled. How did Divine Master Heyu know about this? Could it be that Divine Master Black Feather had already predicted this? Pausing for a moment, he continued. The Nephilim King has captured Yun Yao and sealed Yun Yao in the soul refining bell. Yun Yao could die at any time. Divine Master Heyu, please go and save Yun Yao. Hearing this news, Divine Master Heyu frowned. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. Damn the Nephilim King. He actually captured Yun Yao? Could it be that he already knows about this? This thought flashed across Divine Master Heiyu's mind. His expression turned gloomy. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was worried, he quickly comforted him. Tianqing, you don't have to worry too much. Yun Yao's life is not in danger. The Nephilim King will not kill her. Moreover, even if I go after him now, the Nephilim King has already escaped. I can't catch up with him. Even if I can catch up with him, I can't save Yun Yao from him. Ji Tianqing was speechless. His face was filled with anxiety, but there was nothing he could do. He knew that Divine Master Heyu was telling the truth. Although the Nephilim King had only recovered his strength to the 7th level of the soul refining realm, he had hundreds of methods and secret techniques. In the entire Tianxian continent, only primordial soul realm experts like the Monarch and the Monarch Manor's Master could deal with the Nephilim King. At this moment, Divine Master Heyu continued, Tianqing, the Divine Master in the Manor has already sent a message to me. Not only did the Nephilim King come to kill you, he even sent the Great Demon Commander and Dream Demon to attack Central State City. Now that Central State City is in chaos, I have to rush back to take charge of the situation. Follow me back to Central State City now. There is someone who wants to see you. Ji Tianqing frowned. He asked in confusion, Lord Divine Master, who wants to see me? You will know when you return to Central State City. Divine Master Heyu did not say much. He quickly brought him into the sky and flew towards Central State City. Ji Tianqing recalled the divine golden sword that came from outer space and pierced through the air. He vaguely guessed something, but he could not be sure. His mood became even more complicated. In the blink of an eye, Divine Master Heyu brought him hundreds of miles away from the battlefield. Above the ruins, Divine Dr. Bailey circulated his energy to suppress Bailey Ningsu's injuries. He catalyzed the life-prolonging pill's medicinal efficacy and finally saved Bailey Ningsu's life. Yun Zhongqi's injuries were temporarily suppressed. He also hurried over to help. After that, the two of them brought the unconscious Bailey Ningsu and quickly left the ruins, returning to Cloud Spirit Palace. Yen and Jiang Chun healed their injuries for 4 hours. After they recovered their ability to move, they also left the battlefield and rushed back to Central State City. After a few hours, Divine Master Heyu brought Ji Tianqing back to Central State City as fast as lightning. Even when they were still several dozen li away, Ji Tianqing could already see from the sky that Central Continent City was in a complete mess. There were flames everywhere, rising black smoke rising from the flames. Both inside and outside Central State City, the ground was filled with ravines and holes. It was obvious that a fierce battle had just taken place. In the moat below the city walls, the originally clear and surging water was dyed red by blood. It was like a river of blood. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood. High in the sky, there were still black demonic clouds that had yet to disperse. Many holes had been blasted open in the majestic city walls. The sturdy and thick walls were filled with cracks. Broken stones scattered on the ground and piled up into ruins. When Ji Tianqing followed Divine Master He Yu into the city, he saw that the city's scene was even more miserable. The ground was filled with holes and cracks. There were corpses of people and martial artists of various races lying everywhere. Blood dyed the ground red. It was truly a river of blood. The bustling streets were shattered like mirrors that had been smashed to pieces. The houses and palaces had also been destroyed into ruins by the great battle, leaving only a pile of broken walls, bricks, and rubble on the ground. From the southern city gate to the center of the city, at least 100 streets were destroyed. 100,000 houses were ruined. Such a miserable scene was as if 100,000 soldiers had fought in the city. Chapter 919. Corpses of commoners and martial artists of various races could be seen everywhere in the ruins. Of course, there were also some corpses of the Devil clan that were still emitting black fog and devil chi. There were also some martial artists who were lucky enough to survive, but were heavily injured. They were buried in the ruins, or lying in pools of blood, still groaning in pain. More than half of the southern city district had been destroyed by the battle, and turned into ruins and scorched earth. When God Teacher He Yu and Ji Tianqing flew to the plaza in the city, they saw that the plaza was in a mess. Nearly 100,000 commoners and martial artists had gathered there. Originally, the plaza had been decorated into a banquet hall. There were lanterns and colored banners everywhere. Red lanterns were hung high, and the atmosphere was joyous. There were also thousands of tables in the plaza. On them were various dishes, pastries, fruits, and wine. But now, the banquet hall had become a temporary shelter. Countless tables had collapsed. Fruits, pastries, and wine were scattered on the ground. The red lanterns and red gauze curtains were tattered and scattered on the ground like rags. Many warriors, who were covered in wounds and bloodstains, gathered together, their faces bewildered and fearful. Everyone was silent. Their eyes were filled with fear and worry. They were still in a state of shock. Many city guards were patrolling in groups. They were treating the injured and cleaning up the ruins around the plaza. The princes of the monarch residence were also leading a large group of martial artists to search and rescue the surviving commoners. Most of the princes and martial artists were injured, but they had no time to care or treat their injuries. Ji Tianqing even saw Kuan Wu and Ji Ku in the crowd. The siblings were injured, and their robes were stained with blood. He originally wanted to greet Kuan Wu and Ji Ku and ask them what was going on. But Kuan Wu and Ji Ku were busy searching for the injured. They hurried past the plaza and quickly rushed to the ruins after the battle. Ji Tianqing could only give up. He followed God Teacher He Yu into the forest of divine monuments and returned to the monarch residence. An hour later, God Teacher He Yu brought him back to the Black Feather Palace. The two of them waited in the main hall for 15 minutes. Then, two God Teachers rushed in and reported to God Teacher He Yu. The two God Tier Masters were a man and a woman. The man was from the Demon Clan. He was tall and thin, but his face was extremely handsome. The woman was from the Water Race's Mermaid Race. She had a soft and beautiful body and a pretty face. There was even a red fish scale on her forehead, which left a deep impression on others. "Greetings, great God Master." The two God Tier Masters stood in the middle of the hall and bowed to God Tier Master He Yu. Divine Master He Yu nodded slightly. His expression was solemn as he asked in a low voice, "Before I left, I specially instructed all of you to take charge of the city and be careful of the demonic emperor. I've only left for a few days. How could there be such a drastic change in the city? Tell me what's going on." The Devil Emperor did not personally come to Central Continent City, so who was it that destroyed the city to such a degree? The Demon Clan Divine Master cupped his hands and reported in a low voice, "Great Divine Master, it is the Demon Emperor's Great Demon Commander Dark Knight, and the Demon Emperor's military advisor, Dream Demon." "Dream Demon?" God Tier Master He Yu frowned and asked doubtfully, "Didn't it possess the demon god scepter and follow the demonic emperor?" Everyone knew that Dream Demon could only possess the demon god scepter, or in a person's dream realm, to unleash unimaginable power. Once it left the demon god scepter and the dream realm, it did not have any destructive power. The Demon Clan Divine Master nodded and said, "Yes, Demon Commander Dark Knight brought the Demon God Scepter and snuck into the city after disguising himself. Dream Demon used the power of the Demon God Scepter to forcefully hypnotize the South City Gate Guard and control his dream realm. Under the control of Dream Demon, the South City Gate Guard closed the defensive formation and opened the South City Gate. Demon Commander Dark Knight took this opportunity to launch an attack. He used the Demon God Scepter to summon an army of 100,000 demonic souls and broke through the South City Wall. He started a massacre in the city and killed his way to the city square. The mermaid race Divine Master continued. After this happened, the City Lord's Manor mobilized the city guards and immediately went to stop them. When we received the news, we gathered all the princes and guards to fight the demonic souls. Although we fought bravely and did our best to stop the demonic soul army's attack, but it happened so suddenly and in such a hurry, we were unable to stop the demonic soul army's rampage and destruction. Demon Commander Dark Knight's strength far surpassed ours. Dream Demon used the power of the Demon God Scepter and was not something we could contend against. In the end, all the martial artists in the city and the elite guards of the powerful forces participated in the great battle against the demonic soul army. Although we fought a bloody battle for 4 hours, repelling Demon Commander Dark Knight and Dream Demon, exterminating tens of thousands of demonic soul army, and defending Central Continent City, the South City Wall was destroyed. More than 100,000 houses were destroyed, and close to 300,000 civilians were cruelly massacred. Nearly half of the city guards were killed, and the martial artists of the various races suffered heavy casualties. Even the princes of the manor. At this point, the mermaid race Divine Master paused and hesitated. Divine Master Black Feather looked at her expressionlessly and said in a solemn tone, "Continue." The mermaid race Divine Master lowered her head slightly and said with a face full of shame, "Even the princes of the manor suffered heavy injuries. There were even 6 princes who died prematurely in the battle." Upon hearing this news, the face of Divine Master Black Feather instantly darkened. He looked at the 2 Divine Masters with a pair of piercing eyes and said with a cold and imposing tone, "Each of the princes of the manor is the top genius of the land, a future elite warrior of the refined soul. It was only Demon Commander Dark Knight and Dream Demon causing trouble, yet you let 6 supreme princes die in this chaotic battle." There were hundreds of clans in the Tianxian land, and at least hundreds of billions of martial artists. Among the top genius martial artists of each clan, only a few dozen could enter the monarch mansion. On average, every 2 or 3 years, a new prince would enter the monarch mansion. Today, in this chaotic battle, the monarch mansion had lost 6 princes. How could Divine Master Black Feather not be filled with anger for such a heavy loss? The 2 Divine Masters had already expected this result. When they felt the surging anger of Divine Master Black Feather, instantly they lowered their heads with a face full of guilt. They said with a voice full of self-blame, "It's our carelessness and lack of consideration that caused the manor to suffer such heavy losses. Please punish us, Great Divine Master." Divine Master Black Feather took a deep breath to suppress the anger in his heart. He said with an indifferent tone, "The dead are gone. Those 6 princes have already died in battle. They sacrificed their lives to protect the Central State City. Even if I were to punish you, what use would it be? You can only blame the Demon Clan for being too treacherous, despicable, and arrogant to the extreme. Sooner or later, the Monarch Mansion will take revenge for this grudge." The 2 Divine Masters also nodded with a solemn expression. Thick anger and murderous intentions surged from their eyes as they shouted with a cold tone, "In this Tianxian land, no one can bully the Monarch Mansion." Chapter 920. After listening to the 2 God-tier Masters' reports, God-tier Master He Yu and Ji Tianxing understood what had happened. Even though Central Continent City's losses were extremely disastrous, the casualties of martial artists and commoners reaching 300,000. However, Divine Master Black Feather also knew that Demon General Dark Knight's strength was almost on par with his. Dream Demon, with the support of the Demon God Scepter, was not much weaker than him. Adding on the fact that everything happened so suddenly, No one was prepared for the demon race to attack Central Continent City, resulting in this kind of tragedy. The divine masters and princes of the imperial residence were already doing their best. This was the result of them doing their best to resist the Devil Soul army, without any regard for their own safety. They had already minimized their losses to a minimum. Therefore, Divine Sage Heiyu did not reprimand the two divine sages. After pondering for a moment, he ordered the two divine masters to take the princes to the city to deal with the aftermath. Hundreds of thousands of homeless civilians, and at least 100,000 injured martial artists and civilians, needed to be pacified and dealt with as soon as possible. Hundreds of streets and hundreds of thousands of houses in the southern district had been reduced to scorched earth and ruins. They were in urgent need of reconstruction and repair. The power of the city lord's mansion alone was obviously insufficient for such a vast and tedious task. God-tier Master Hei, you gave the two God-tier masters a time limit of 10 days to deal with the aftermath and restore the South District to its original state. Time was of the essence, and the task was heavy. The two God-tier masters did not dare to bargain, and they quickly left the Black Feather Palace to carry out the task. After the two divine masters left, Divine Master Heiyu looked at Ji Tianxing and said solemnly, "Let's go. Follow me to the Imperial Palace." Imperial Palace? Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. As the crown prince of the monarch mansion, he naturally knew of the existence of the Imperial Palace. It was a mysterious ancient palace located in the deepest part of the monarch residence. It was also the most sacred palace in the monarch residence. The Imperial Palace had always existed since the establishment of the Imperial King residence. Only the successive palace masters were qualified to live in it. For nearly 200 years, the palace lord's whereabouts had always been a mystery. No one in the outside world had ever seen the palace lord's face. Even the few god-tier masters in the mansion didn't dare to get close to the Imperial Palace. Now, Divine Mentor Heiyu wanted to bring him to the Imperial Palace. It was obvious that he wanted to bring him to meet the palace master. That was the publicly acknowledged #1 expert in the continent, the elusive Manor Lord. At the thought of this, Ji Tianxing's heartbeat quickened. He asked God Sage Heiyu, "Lord God Sage, could it be that the person you're talking about is the master?" Divine Master Black Feather didn't reply. He only nodded. Ji Tianxing asked in confusion, "Sir God Teacher, according to the rumors, the prefecture lord has not appeared for 200 years. He might have left the profound sky continent. Could it be that the mansion master was not like what the rumors said? Had he always been in the Emperor Mansion? Also, I've only been in the Imperial residence for less than a year. What have I done to deserve the Manor Lord's summons?" God Sage Black Feather looked at him calmly. He shook his head and said, "I cannot answer your questions. When you meet the Palace Lord, perhaps you'll know the answer. If the Manor Head doesn't want to talk about it, then it means that the time isn't right yet. You don't have to ask too much. Anyways, if you come with me to meet the Palace Lord, it will only bring you benefits." After he had finished speaking, he didn't explain any further. He took Ji Tianxing and left the Black Feather Palace. They flew towards the depths of the Imperial residence. The two of them flew high in the sky filled with dense spiritual mist. They crossed the mountain ranges within 1,000 miles and flew towards the 10,000-meter tall giant peak at the end of the horizon. That was the tallest mountain peak in the Imperial residence. It occupied more than a few hundred miles and appeared extremely ancient and majestic. This mountain peak was extremely steep. It was surrounded by almost vertical cliffs and precipitous cliffs. The surface of the dark brown rocks had been eroded by the wind and frost over the years. Standing below this giant peak, it gave people the illusion that they would be able to touch the stars in the sky once they reached the peak of the mountain. More than half of the giant peak was covered by thick white clouds and mist. Along with the rolling clouds and mist, it appeared hazy and graceful, ancient and mysterious. Ji Tianxing followed Divine Master Black Feather and flew 10,000 meters in the sky. They landed on the mountain peak. The terrain of the mountain peak was relatively flat. It had a radius of 100 miles. What appeared in front of the two of them was a wide plaza in front of the palace. It was paved with ancient marble slabs and decorated with dark green ancient jade and gemstones. Around the plaza stood 8 statues. They were carved with the successive palace lords of the imperial residence. Each statue was 100 meters tall. The carvings were lifelike and revealed a domineering and majestic aura that looked down on the common people. On the other side of the plaza stood an ancient dark golden palace. It was faintly discernible in the clouds and mist. The palace had 3 floors and was 100 meters tall. It was extremely huge and majestic. However, the palace's walls, roof, and eaves were mottled with traces of vicissitudes. It was obvious that it had gone through countless years. This ancient and sacred palace was the residence of the palace lord, the imperial palace. It stood quietly at the peak of the mountain, as if it was silently telling of the imperial residence's mysterious origins and majestic heritage. Divine Master Black Feather led Ji Tianxing through the plaza and walked towards the main entrance of the imperial palace. Outside the main entrance was a wide corridor. Between the corridor and the plaza were 99 white jade steps. The steps were engraved with cloud patterns. It made one feel as if they were walking on the steps and ascending to the heavens. When the two of them crossed the 99 steps and arrived at the entrance of the tall and majestic main hall, Divine Master Black Feather stopped. He turned his head to look at Ji Tianxing and said with a serious expression, "The palace lord summoned you alone. Enter the main hall alone and pay your respects to the palace lord. I won't follow you in. I'll wait outside the hall." After saying that, Divine Master Black Feather retreated to the side and gestured for him to enter. Ji Tianxing nodded. He looked at the tightly shut bronze door with a serious expression and stepped out. Although he looked calm, he was nervous and doubtful. He stood in front of the door. After taking a deep breath, he held the huge bronze door knocker and slowly pushed the door open. With a heavy creaking sound, the 30-meter-tall bronze door opened. A hazy light shone through the gap and into the dark main hall. The main hall was very spacious. He could see 6 huge pillars painted in red and gold. They were engraved with images of flying dragons and phoenixes. The main hall was empty. A thin layer of dust could be faintly seen on the dark gold floor tiles. Ji Tianxing hesitated for a moment before stepping into the main hall. He had just taken a few steps when the bronze door behind him automatically closed with a muffled bang. Immediately after that, hundreds of gemstone lamps lit up on the walls of the main hall. They emitted a dazzling spiritual light. The 5-colored brilliance immediately lit up the main hall. The gold bricks on the floor also reflected a dazzling golden light. The main hall that was previously cold and dark suddenly became brightly lit. It was golden and dazzling like the palace of the gods. At the same time, a deep and majestic voice of a man filled with vicissitudes came from the main seat of the main hall. Chapter 921. The voice that suddenly rang out did not seem out of place at all. Ji Tianxing could not determine the age of the speaker, just from the voice alone. The voice had the dominance and majesty of a middle-aged man, as well as the vicissitudes of experience of an old man, and the open-mindedness and calmness of someone who understood the world. It was hard for Ji Tianxing to imagine what kind of expert was able to fuse these two completely different auras into his voice. He subconsciously raised his head and looked at the main seat in the north of the hall. He saw 2 6-meter-long golden bridges at the end of the hall. Under the exquisite and luxurious arch bridge was a small river flowing with colorful spiritual liquid. After crossing the golden bridge, there were 9 golden brick steps. On the steps was a platform with a radius of 10 meters. On the platform was a spacious, luxurious, and extremely honorable emperor's throne. On the left and right sides of the throne stood 2 3-meter-tall statues. One was dark gold, and the other was dark black. The dark gold statue on the left was a half-human, half-dragon dragon man, holding a golden spear in his hand. It was a muscular and graceful man wearing golden armor. He had human limbs and a human head, but his skin was covered with golden dragon scales. Moreover, there was a golden dragon horn on his head. The dark statue on the right was a harpy that looked like an eagle. She had an enchanting figure and long legs. She wore short black armor and had a pair of wide and slender black wings. She held a bow in her hand Although they were just two statues, they were extremely lifelike, as if they could come to life at any time. Ji Tianxing's eyes swept across the golden dragon man and the harpy, and his gaze fell on the throne. The 6-meter-wide dark gold throne was made of blazing fire gold, and inlaid with tens of thousands of precious gems. There were also many ancient and mysterious patterns, made of spiritual chalcedony and star mithril. A burly middle-aged man in a purple robe was sitting quietly on the throne. His nearly 2-meter-tall body contained an unparalleled majesty and the domineering aura of an expert who looked down on the world. His snow-white hair was tied up by a dark gold dragon rope and hung tame behind his head, showing a carefree and unrestrained temperament. The purple robe he was wearing had an ancient style and was embroidered with mysterious patterns. A dark golden cloak was draped over his shoulders and dragged on the ground, emitting a holy golden light. His face could not be considered handsome, but his appearance was dignified, upright, and dignified. His outline was tough and resolute, as if it had been carved by a knife. His pair of dark and deep eyes were like a boundless abyss, yet also like the vast starry sky, and they contained experience and the ability to see through the hearts of others. Ji Tianxing only glanced at him once, and he felt as if his mind had been seen through. He did not dare to look directly into his eyes. Without a doubt, this mysterious yet domineering man was none other than the legendary monarch Manor Lord. Ji Tianxing walked into the hall, his mind full of doubts. He was still trying to figure out what the purple-robed man had said. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. You're finally back?" The Manor Lord was a supreme expert at the Essence Soul realm. True Body was what he called himself. But why did he wait for me for so long? How long is a long time? A few days? Or a few years? Are you referring to me? Or the Kenshin bloodline? What do you mean by finally back? I've never been to the Imperial Palace. How can I be back? Ji Tianxing felt that the Manor Lord's words had a deeper meaning, but he could not understand or guess it. After a while, he walked into the hall and stood still. He faced the Manor Lord on the throne and bowed respectfully. The Imperial Prince Ji Tianxing pays his respects to the Prefecture Lord. The Manor Lord looked at him calmly and said in a dignified voice, "Rise." Ji Tianxing did not get up. He continued to maintain his salute and said sincerely, "The Crown Prince thanks the Manor Head for saving his life. If it wasn't for the Manor Head, the Crown Prince would have died." He knew very well that the divine golden sword that had appeared from outer space must have come from the Manor Lord. Only the strongest person in the continent could make the demonic emperor so fearful and retreat on the spot. The Manor Lord nodded slightly and said calmly, "You may rise. I was hundreds of thousands of miles away at that time. I could only use my sword to save you. If you were killed by the demonic emperor, not only would the Kenshin inheritance be severed, but the Kenshin bloodline would also be taken away by the demonic emperor. If the demonic emperor obtains the Kenshin bloodline, he will be like a tiger that has grown wings. Not only will he be able to recover to his peak faster, but he will also be able to remove the curse and shackles." At this point, the mansion master paused and didn't continue speaking. However, Ji Tianxing knew that once the demonic emperor obtained his Kenshin bloodline, the demonic emperor would become even more powerful. That would definitely be a nightmare and disaster for all the races in the world. He frowned and said to the Manor Lord worriedly, "Manor Lord, the demonic emperor captured Yun Yao and suppressed Yun Yao in the soul refining bell. Yun Yao may die at any time. The prince begs the Manor Lord to save her. Only you can save her." Since Yun Yao was captured, his heart had been tightly clenched. He was very worried and anxious. Therefore, he could not help but ask the Manor Lord for help. However, the Manor Lord shook his head gently and said calmly, "Yun Yao's life will not be in danger. The demonic emperor will not kill her. However, the demonic emperor has already escaped from Zhongzhou. Even if I chase after him, I will not be able to catch up. We can only plan this slowly in the future." How could Ji Tianxing wait until the future? Right now, he only wanted to save Yun Yao as soon as possible and see Yun Yao return to the monarch mansion safe and sound. "Manor Lord, why are you so sure that the demonic emperor will not kill Yun Yao? You don't need to know about this for now. You will understand in the future." the Manor Lord replied expressionlessly. Ji Tianqing frowned. He was still unwilling to give up and continued. Manor Lord, the demonic clan is so rampant now. The demonic emperor is causing trouble and harming the people of all races. As the Manor Lord of the Monarch Mansion and the strongest person in the continent, are you going to sit back and do nothing? As the emperor's son, it was disrespectful for him to question the Manor Lord like this. However, the Manor Lord was not angry. He said calmly, even if I personally go to the demonic nest in the northern desert, I will not be able to kill the demonic emperor, let alone rescue Yun Yao alive. We cannot rush to kill the demonic clan. You know too little about the demonic clan. In fact, the Manor Lord did not explain one thing, and he could not explain it to Ji Tianqing. When he ascended the ninth heaven platform, he was severely injured by the ninth heaven divine thunder, and only had 50% of his power left. He had been in seclusion for 20 years to recuperate, but he had only recovered 70% of his power. There were still hidden injuries in his body that had not healed. Ji Tianqing fell silent. He was anxious and unwilling, but there was nothing he could do. If he did not hear it with his own ears, he would not believe that the Manor Lord, the strongest person in the continent, could not destroy the demonic nest and kill the demonic emperor. After a moment of silence, he made up his mind and said firmly, since the Manor Lord is not willing to save Yun Yao, I will save her myself. She is my wife. We have bowed to heaven and earth, and made a vow to live and die together. Chapter 922. The mansion master was not surprised at all by Ji Tianqing's reaction. It was within his expectations. He looked at Ji Tianqing calmly and said, with your current strength, it's impossible for you to save Yun Yao. Even if you enter the northern desert, it's like hitting a rock with an egg. You'll die without a doubt. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change. His eyes were filled with determination as he said in a serious tone, of course, Your Highness, you know that. But in life, there are things you should and shouldn't do. There are some things you have to fight for even though you know it's hopeless. You know that the outcome may be a tragedy and death, but you can't do nothing because you're afraid of death. Yun Yao is my wife. No matter how dangerous it is, I have to save her, even if I have to die. When Ji Tianqing said these words, an invisible aura surged from his body. He was determined and fearless. He was mentally prepared that the mansion master might persuade him to give up and not be stubborn. Or perhaps, the mansion master would laugh at him for being stupid and overestimating himself. He was courting death, but he had made up his mind. No matter what others said, he would not waver. After a moment of silence, the mansion master said in a low voice, actually, you still have a long way to go. You have the Kenshin bloodline. You still have a lot of things to bear. Dealing with the Demon Emperor and the Devil Clan is not your ultimate goal and mission. There are more shocking mysteries waiting for you to uncover, and more important missions waiting for you to complete. Many years later, you might even leave this continent. Why do you have to focus on the Devil Clan and the Demon Emperor? Ji Tianqing frowned and asked, may I ask, Mansion Master, what shocking mysteries and missions are there? The Mansion Master shook his head slightly and said in a low voice, you're not qualified to know now. Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. He said calmly, if that's the case, then I'll wait until Your Highness is qualified to know. Please tell Your Highness then. The most important thing now is to rescue Yun Yao as soon as possible. The more time we delay, the more dangerous it will be for her. When the palace master saw how determined he was, he no longer tried to persuade him. Instead, he said in a low voice, fine. Since you're so determined, I'll give you a clear path. If you want to save Yun Yao, you can't rush into the northern desert. You have to improve your strength quickly. Only when you reach the soul refining realm can you enter the northern desert. Moreover, Kenshin was the nemesis of the demons. Legend has it that when he fell, his divine sword fell into the great swamp of the southern wasteland, and no one had been able to find it until now. If you can find that broken sword in the great swamp of the southern wasteland, it will certainly be of great help to your martial arts and swordsmanship. It will make your strength increase even faster. Ji Tianqing had already inquired about the divine sword from God Teacher Black Feather and the burial of heaven. Of course, he knew that if he could find that broken sword, not only would he be able to help Burial of Heaven recover quickly, but it would also be of great help to his sword cultivation. Even if the broken sword was hidden in the great swamp of the southern wasteland, it was very hidden and mysterious, and no one had found it for thousands of years. However, with the help of the Burial of Heaven, there was a great chance that he could find the broken sword. Thinking of this, he nodded and said to the palace master, "Thank you for your advice, palace master. After the emperor is ready, he will go to the great swamp of the southern wasteland." The palace master nodded slightly and continued, "Also, if you want to save Yin Yao from the Demon King, it's impossible for you to do it alone. You have to form your own force. Only with the help of a powerful force and powerhouses can you successfully save Yin Yao from the demon's nest." My own force? Ji Tianqing had a puzzled look on his face. He subconsciously thought of Yin Ji Ke Kunwu, Yin Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey. Among these people, only Yin Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey had reached the soul refining realm and could compete with the demon powerhouses. However, with only Yin Zhongqi and Miracle Dr. Bailey's help, it was still impossible for him to save Yin Yao. The palace master narrowed his eyes slightly and revealed a solemn look. He said in a serious tone, 8,000 years ago, before Kenshin left the Tianxian continent, he took in 4 followers. The 4 followers had received favors from Kenshin, were either enlightened by Kenshin, or were saved by Kenshin. They were all loyal to Kenshin. Although Kenshin had never taken in any disciples, the 4 of them treated Kenshin as his disciples and regarded themselves as his disciples. After Kenshin disappeared, the 4 of them went their separate ways and scattered to different places in the Tianxian continent to develop and form their own forces. Now perhaps they are still alive in the world and should be top powerhouses with huge forces. If you can find them and get their help with your ability, you will have a greater chance to save Yin Yao. Ji Tianqing listened attentively to the palace master's narration of Kenshin's deeds. Strange lights flashed across his eyes, and he could not help but have questions in his mind. He hesitated for a moment and probed, "Palace master, may I ask what is your relationship with Kenshin? Why do you know so much about Kenshin's deeds?" The palace master's expression did not change as he answered with a calm tone. "The monarch mansion has been established for almost 10,000 years. In the Tianxian continent, there are not many things that the monarch mansion does not know. Not to mention, Kenshin's name shook the Tianxian continent, and he had some relationship with the monarch mansion. How could I not know this information?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and did not pursue this matter. He returned to the previous question and asked the palace master, "Palace master, may I ask who were Kenshin's 4 followers? Where should the emperor go to find them?" After a moment of silence, the palace master answered with a solemn tone, "After thousands of years, I don't know where they went or where they are now. Regarding their information, I can only tell you one thing. Remember the 4 words, Guyi Xiaoshui. As for whether you can find them and get their help, it will depend on fate and your ability." Guyi Xiaoshui. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and silently repeated these 4 words. However, he was completely baffled and couldn't understand the profoundness within them at all. "Palace master, could it be you don't have any more information? The Tianxian continent is so vast and boundless. How can I find them with just these 4 words?" However, the palace master did not answer this question and said with an aged and distant tone, "Ji Tianqing, do you believe in fate?" "Fate?" Ji Tianqing looked at him in confusion and said with a heart full of confusion, "What does this have to do with me finding the 4 followers of Kenshin?" The palace master avoided the question and did not answer. He looked at the entrance of the main hall, and his eyes became somewhat blurred and deep. He said meaningfully, "Sometimes, when you think that you can conquer the heavens and control your own fate, in the end, you will realize that you are still following the arrangement of fate and stepping on the path predestined by the unseen." Ji Tianqing frowned and did not speak. He vaguely understood what he meant, but after thinking carefully, he did not say anything. The palace master seemed to have recalled his past. His aura became deep and profound as he said in a low voice, "That's all I have to say. After you're ready, go to the great swamp of the southern wasteland and look for that divine sword." Chapter 923. Ji Tianqing saw that the palace master did not want to say anything more, so he bowed and left. When he stepped through the bronze gate and left the palace, God teacher Heiyu was waiting for him under the eaves. Hearing the footsteps, God teacher Heiyu turned around and asked, "Tianqing, did you see the palace master? Did you learn anything?" Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "You can say that I gained something. The mansion master's words are too mysterious and meaningful. It's hard to fathom." God teacher Heiyu nodded and said calmly, "The palace master is a primordial spirit supreme, with a lifespan of over 1,000 years. He is not an ordinary cultivator. Of course he is different." While talking, the two of them left the palace and flew back to the Heiyu palace. On the way back, God teacher Heiyu asked, "Tianqing, what are you going to do next?" Ji Tianqing said with a solemn face, "Master, I might have to leave the monarch mansion for a long time. I have to save Yin Yao. No matter how dangerous the demon nest is, I will not turn back. However, I am too weak now. Before going to the northern desert demon nest, I have to go to the southern wilderness swamp. I have to find that broken sword and find a way to improve my strength quickly." As for the 4 followers of the sword god, he did not mention a single word. Even the palace master did not know about it. God teacher Heiyu might not know about it. It was useless for him to say it. God teacher Heiyu thought for a while and nodded. "That is good too. Don't worry and go. Although you are talented and your speed of improvement is unprecedented, you have not reached the soul refining stage. It is impossible for you to save Yin Yao. You have been in the sky origin stage for a long time. Go to the southern wilderness swamp and experience the dangers of life and death. Maybe you will have a chance to break through." "Tianqing, when are you going to leave?" Ji Tianqing answered honestly, "Of course, the sooner the better. But before I leave, I have some trivial matters to deal with." God teacher Heiyu nodded and took out a jade box from his space ring and gave it to him. "Ever since I announced that I would personally teach you, all the imperial princes in the mansion have been envious of you. However, what they don't know is that I have yet to guide you in your cultivation. You're about to go to the southern wasteland Great Swamp. That's one of the most dangerous forbidden areas on the continent. Even soul refinement realm experts may not be able to escape unscathed. I'll give you 3 soul-level medicinal pills. Take them. They might come in handy at a critical moment." Soul-level medicinal pills could only be refined by soul refinement realm alchemy grandmasters. Each pill was priceless and incomparably precious. Ji Tianqing took a deep look at God Master Blackfeather before reaching out to take the jade box. He then bowed and thanked. "Thank you for your gift, God Master." Priest Heiyu slightly nodded, then continued in a serious tone. "The southern wasteland Great Lake is very dangerous and complicated. Not only are there all kinds of unexpected dangers, some ancient clans and forces are also hiding there. You must be very careful in your actions. Before entering the great swamp of the southern wasteland, it's best that you understand it clearly. The Crown Prince will remember the teachings of the Divine Master." Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. God Master Blackfeather didn't say anything else. He left first and returned to the Blackfeather Palace. Ji Tianqing put the jade box containing the 3 soul-level medicinal pills into his space ring and continued to fly to the Tianqing Palace. After an hour, he returned to the Tianqing Palace. He first took out the seal of mountains and rivers and settled the hundreds of guards and maids in the space ring in the Tianqing Palace. Then he began to heal his injuries. Earlier, God Master Blackfeather helped him suppress his injuries. However, his internal injuries hadn't healed yet. His strength was still very weak. In order to recover his injuries and strength as soon as possible, he took out a few spirit pills and consumed them. Then, he entered the room to cultivate. After 2 days, with the help of the spirit pills and his powerful self-healing ability, his injuries finally recovered by more than half. He was fine for the time being. At this moment, Footsteps were heard outside the door. A guard captain came to reporting to the region lord. His Majesty the Emperor has come to visit. He's waiting for you in the guest hall. When Ji Tianqing heard the news, he hurriedly finished healing his injuries and left the room. When he rushed to the guest hall, he saw Long Yunxiao in a golden robe. He was standing in the hall with a gloomy face, thinking about something. Son of Heaven, you've come. Ji Tian walked into the main hall, clasped his hands and greeted him. Long Yunxiao turned his head to look at him. His face was cold and his eyes were bloodshot. His eyes were filled with anger and anxiety. 2 days ago, it was the day you and Yao Yao got married. The city square was changed into a banquet hall. A big banquet was held, and all the people in the city were invited to celebrate. I arrived at the banquet hall with the heavenly concubine. I endured the sadness and jealousy in my heart, waiting for you and Yao Yao to come back. I wanted to drink a cup of wine and congratulate you in person. But what was the result? The Demon Soul Army broke into the central state city and slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people. The banquet hall was turned into ruins. The 800 people in the wedding procession were all killed. Uncle Yin and Divine Dr. Bailey were seriously injured and on the verge of death. Madame Yun's fate is unknown. Yao Yao was also captured by the Demon Emperor. Long Yunjiao's entire body was emitting a cold anger. When he talked about what happened that day, his entire body trembled. These 2 days, he had been busy in the city dealing with the aftermath. He had treated the injured and comforted the homeless people. He had not slept for a moment. Until just now, when he received the news from his subordinates from Cloud Spirit Palace, he knew that the result was so serious. He was unable to restrain his anger. He was so angry that he almost lost his mind. He rushed to Tianqing Palace without caring about anything else. He wanted to find Ji Tianqing and explain everything to him. Therefore, his tone was angry and manic. His eyes were almost red. Ji Tianqing, why did Yao Yao encounter so many disasters when she met you? Why is her life on the verge of death now? I hate that I shouldn't have retreated. I shouldn't have given Yao Yao to you. Why was the one captured by the Demon Emperor Yao Yao and not you? Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly. When he finished his angry roar, he said indifferently, So, you came here today to denounce me? So what if I did? Long Yunxiao was even more furious. He clenched his fists so hard that they creaked. He was almost unable to restrain his anger. At this time, another figure rushed in from the entrance of the main hall. He entered the main hall as fast as the wind. Your Majesty, please don't be impulsive. The person who came was Kuan Wu. He was travel-worn like Long Yunxiao. His face was full of fatigue, and his aura was weak. Even the fox fur coat he wore was stained with blood. He did not even have time to clean it up. It was obvious that he had been dealing with the aftermath of Central State City for the past 2 days. He had not been idle for a moment. Kuan Wu came to the main hall and stopped in front of Tianqing. He said sincerely, Tianqing, you can't blame this on Tianqing. You can only blame the Demon Emperor for being too despicable and vicious. The demon race is too cruel and tyrannical. That day was supposed to be Tianqing and Yun Yao's big day. They should be the happiest people in the world. Who would have thought that the Demon Emperor would make trouble that day? He did not care about his status as a powerhouse and directly attacked Tianqing and Yun Yao. The tragedy has already happened. Yun Yao has been captured by the Demon Emperor. Tianqing is the one who is suffering the most. His anger and anxiety are not any less than yours. Tianqing, you don't comfort Tianqing but blame him like this. Can you still be considered his friend? Long Yunxiao immediately fell silent. He took a deep breath to suppress his anger and calm down. Ji Tianqing looked at him indifferently and said coldly, Yao Yao is my wife. She was captured by the Demon Emperor. I am more angry than anyone else. But is anger useful? Can anger make the Demon Emperor afraid and stop stirring up trouble and killing innocent people? If you are done venting, please leave. I still need to go into seclusion to heal my injuries. I need to do something very important. Chapter 924. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Kuan Wu and Long Yunxiao frowned. His tone was very firm and resolute. The two of them did not doubt his attitude and determination. However, the two of them could not see that he had any hope of saving Yun Yao. Kuan Wu looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, Tianqing, even Asgard Master Yin and Divine Dr. Bailey could not stop the Devil Emperor. How can you save Yun Yao? Even if you want to save Yun Yao, you have to ask for help from someone stronger. For example, God Master Heiyu. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said calmly, God Master Heiyu might not be a match for the Devil Emperor. Long Yunxiao hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, If there is no other way, I will return to the imperial court now and beg the emperor to help. Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said indifferently, Even the prefecture master might not be able to do it. How can the emperor save Yun Yao? Moreover, as the leader of the human race, how can the emperor barge into the devil race's lair alone for Yun Yao? Long Yunxiao was speechless. He frowned and did not say anything. Kuan Wu, on the other hand, heard some clues and asked doubtfully, Tianqing, could it be that the prefecture master has shown himself? Have you seen the prefecture master? Ji Tianqing did not say anything, and only nodded. Kuan Wu and Long Yunxiao looked at each other and were shocked. After a moment of silence, Kuan Wu continued to ask, Tianqing, did the prefecture master enlighten you? Where are you going? How are you going to save Yun Yao? Ji Tianqing knew that Kuan Wu and Long Yunxiao were trustworthy people. He did not hide anything from them and said, I am going to the southern wasteland Great Swamp to complete a big task and find an opportunity to break through. I cannot rush to save Yao Yao. I can only try my best to increase my strength and find all possible opportunities. Kuan Wu nodded in agreement and said, That's right. The Devil Emperor is very powerful, and the Devil Race's lair is unfathomable. They have a deep and mysterious foundation. You must not act recklessly. Tianqing, when do you plan to leave? Ji Tianqing silently calculated the time and said, In about 5 days, I will leave the central continent alone and go to the great swamp of the southern wasteland. Kuan Wu nodded again. She took out 2 boxes from her spatial ring and placed them in front of him. Tianqing, the southern wasteland's great lake is extremely dangerous. This time, I can't help you much. These are some elixirs, magical tools, and talismans. Although they are not very powerful treasures, they can help you solve the problem of resource consumption in the short term. Seeing that Ji Tianqing wanted to refuse, he added, Tianqing, you don't have to refuse. Even if it's for Ke's sake, you must accept it. At the mention of Ji Ke, Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment, but he didn't refuse and put the 2 boxes into his spatial ring. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, Kuan Wu, how's Ke doing recently? Kuan Wu revealed a complicated expression. She sighed and said, Ever since she recovered from her injuries, she seems to have changed into a different person. She is depressed all day and immerses herself in bitter cultivation. In these 2 days, she has been following me to deal with the aftermath of the incident and to appease the people in the city. She is busy as if she doesn't know what fatigue is. I don't know what kind of stimulation she received, but it really makes me worried. Ji Tianqing felt a slight pain in his heart. He vaguely understood something, but he couldn't open his mouth. At this time, Long Yunxiao also took out a wash-basin-sized treasure box and handed it to him. Then, he said in a serious tone, Ji Tianqing, I hope you can survive and successfully rescue Yao Yao. I can't help you in this matter. I can only give you some elixirs and spirit stones. After the situation in the city stabilizes, I will do my best to punish the Morong family and won't let them have the chance to deal with you again. Ji Tianqing took a deep look at him. After a moment of silence, he accepted the treasure chest that he had given him. After that, Kuan Wu and Long Yunxiao gave him a few words of advice and then left together. After the two left, Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and then went to the study to write a letter to a guard and ordered him to deliver it to Cloud Soul Palace. Divine Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi were both seriously injured and would need to recuperate for at least a few years to recover. Although Bailey Ningsu's life was saved, she was still unconscious. It was unknown when she would recover. In the letter, he sent his regards to the 3 elders and told them of his plan. After the guard left Tianqing Palace with the secret letter, He prepared to return to his room and circulate his energy to treat his injuries. But not long after, a guard came to report that the master, Yan and Jiang Chun had returned. Ji Tianxing had been waiting for his father's return. When he heard the news, he hurried to see him. When he went back to the central province to marry Yun Yao, his father's identity was not suitable for him to go with the wedding procession. So he stayed at Cloud Soul Palace for half a day before leaving. He did not expect that his father would escape a disaster because of this. When Ji Tianxing rushed to the main hall in the front yard, he saw his father, Yan and Jiang Chen. The three of them were travel-worn, and their faces were full of anxiety. Yan and Jiang Chen were both seriously injured, and their bodies were stained with blood. Ji Changkong's face was the gloomiest, and his mood was the most chaotic. When he saw Ji Tianxing, he hurriedly asked, "Tianxing, what happened? How did a good wedding turn out like this?" Seeing that his son was about to get married, he was extremely gratified and happy. However, in the blink of an eye, the wedding was ruined, hundreds of people were slaughtered, and the central province city was in a mess. His daughter-in-law Yun Yao was even taken away by the demon emperor. How could he not be shocked and angry? When he heard the news, he was so angry and anxious that he almost vomited blood on the spot. However, he was the same as Ji Tianxing. Both father and son had tenacity in their bones, and their minds were firm and calm. Ji Tianxing hurriedly supported him and comforted him. "Father, don't worry. Yao Yao's life is not in danger for the time being. I will do everything I can to save her as soon as possible." Of course, Ji Changkong knew that this matter was not that simple. He was full of worry, and advised him not to be reckless. Next, Ji Tianxing asked about Yan and Jiang Chen's injuries. After confirming that they were fine, he said to Ji Changkong, "Father, I will leave the central province in a few days. I may be away for a long time. You and Jiang Chen will stay in the palace for the time being. When Jiang Chen recovers, he will escort you back to the Tianqian domain. You can wait for news in the domain chief's manor." After saying that, he looked at Yan and asked, "Yan, I will be going out alone for a long time. You stay in the palace and recuperate." Although Yan was a little reluctant, he still pulled himself together and said in a firm tone, "Senior brother Tianxing, I know that you are going to save senior sister, and will definitely experience life and death dangers. Yan can't help you. I only hope that you can be careful and turn misfortune into blessing. You can successfully save senior sister." After this incident, the central province city is also in chaos. Master and Grand Elder must be very worried. "Senior brother, you just have to take care of your matters. I will go to the Qifeng courtyard to find Master and Grand Elder and explain it to them. Since you are not in the Monarch Manor, I will not stay here either. I will go back to the Sky Pillar sect in the Tianqian domain with Master and Grand Elder." Hearing Yan's words, Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "That's good too. When you, Master, and Grand Elder return to the Tianqian domain, it's best to bring my father and Jiang Chen along. You can go back to the Tianqian domain together, so that you can take care of each other on the way." Everyone came to an agreement on this matter. Ji Changkong, Yan and Jiang Chen left the hall to recuperate and heal their injuries. Ji Tianxing also returned to his room and continued to circulate his energy to heal his injuries. Unknowingly, 4 days had passed. On the morning of the 5th day, his injuries had mostly healed and his cultivation had recovered to 80%. Chapter 925. Ji Tianxing left the monarch mansion alone and rushed towards the south gate of Central Continent City. He only brought Qianyu and the little black dragon with him. All the resources and treasures were in the space ring. The journey to the great swamp of the southern wasteland was hundreds of millions of miles away. He had to pass through the entire southern continent. He was prepared to go through all kinds of difficulties and dangers. While flying towards the south gate, he looked down at the South City from the sky. He saw that the South City that had been destroyed by the flames of war a few days ago was being rebuilt in full swing. The god masters of the monarch mansion sat in the center, commanding the many princes and city guards to lead the people in rebuilding their homes. Hundreds of destroyed streets had been restored to their original state. More than half of the hundreds of thousands of ruined houses had been rebuilt. There were fewer and fewer homeless people. Everyone worked together to rebuild their homes. The progress of the project was very fast. In at most 2 or 3 days, the South City would be restored to its original state. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing felt a little comforted in his heart. Not long after, he landed in front of the South Gate. The damaged and collapsed city walls and gates had been repaired long ago. There were dozens of city guards strictly guarding them. He showed his identity token to the city guards and went out of the city through the city gate. However, just as he walked out of the city gate and was about to fly into the sky, he caught a glimpse of a young girl in a fiery red dress standing on the main road outside the city gate. The young girl had a pair of golden raccoon ears. Her face was very beautiful and cute. Her temperament was also graceful and luxurious. She stood quietly on the side of the main road and looked at the city gate with a calm expression. She was obviously waiting for someone. She was Jike. When Ji Tianqing saw her, he was stunned and stopped in his tracks. Jike also stared at him. Her clear eyes revealed a faint smile as she quickly went up to him. "Cuckoo, why are you here?" Ji Tianqing walked up to her and asked with some confusion. Jike pouted her little mouth and said with a somewhat reproachful tone, "Brother Tianqing, you are too despicable. You actually wanted to sneak away alone and didn't even bring me along. If I didn't ask Brother Kunwu, I would still be kept in the dark by you." Ji Tianqing immediately understood the reason. With an apologetic look on his face, he persuaded, "Ku, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hide it from you, but I can't take you with me. You can stay in Central Continent City, or return to the Fei Imperial Court to cultivate in peace." Jike frowned and said solemnly, "Big Brother Tianqing, Big Senior Sister has been taken away by the damned devil emperor. I know you are very angry and sad. I understand how you feel. You want to rescue eldest senior sister and go to the great swamp of the southern wasteland alone to complete an important task. You want to bear all the pain and danger by yourself, and you don't want to bring trouble to us." Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. However, Jike's words were his true thoughts. Jike had grown up with him. The two of them were childhood sweethearts. Jike understood him better than anyone else. "But Big Brother Tianqing, this matter is not your fault. You are the one who has suffered the most. Why do you want to bear all the sin and danger by yourself? Yun Yao is your wife, my big senior sister and my friend. I also want to go to the great swamp of the southern wasteland with you. I want to take risks with you, grow stronger with you, and save eldest senior sister together. Your long-cherished wish is my goal. I will only be happy when you are happy." Jike looked at Ji Tianqing with a resolute gaze. Her tone revealed an unquestionable persistence. She loved Ji Tianqing deeply and would not change her mind even in death. After going through all the hardships and tribulations, she was no longer the naive, and lively girl from before. She already understood her own heart, and also understood that love was not about asking and receiving, but about giving and waiting. She loved Ji Tianqing, so she loved everything about him, and loved what he loved. She was willing to share the joys and sorrows with him and forge ahead. Ji Tianqing was a little moved, but he also felt a little helpless. He sighed and said, "Cuckoo, why are you doing this? What you should do now is to stay in the imperial court and cultivate in peace. You and your parents have been separated for many years. Now that you have finally reunited, you should spend more time with them." Jike shook her head and said in a calm and firm tone, "Imperial father and imperial mother want to take charge of the demon race and fight against the invasion of the demon army. Big Brother Kunwu has also been working hard to become stronger and achieve the unification and peace of the demon race. I also want to work hard for my own goal. Big Brother Tianqing, I will accompany you through these most difficult days and do my best to help you save eldest senior sister. In short, I don't care. I want to follow you. When we left Clear Sky Country together and went to Sky Pillar Sect, you promised to take care of me forever and not abandon me. Big Brother Tianqing, don't try to deny it, and don't even think about abandoning me." She was still trying to reason with Ji Tianqing at first, but when she saw that Ji Tianqing was still unwilling to agree, she returned to her lively personality and pulled on his arm like a spoiled child. Ji Tianxing knew that she had already made up her mind and could not be persuaded no matter what, so he could only nod and agree to this matter. All right, Cuckoo, I can promise to take you with me. But you have to inform Kunwu and your parents so that they won't worry. Ji Ku revealed a faint smile and nodded. Don't worry, big brother Tianxing. I left a letter for them last night. Ji Tianxing nodded and did not say anything else. He took her and left the southern city gate. He released Qianyu from the 100 treasures brocade pouch and sat on Qianyu's back with Ji Ku. They flew into the sky like a bolt of lightning and flew towards the south. In the recent few months, Qianyu rarely showed himself and was unable to help Ji Tianxing fight. It had always been sleeping in the 100 treasures brocade pouch, silently cultivating and working hard to improve its strength. Now its strength had already reached the 9th level of the origin core stage and was about to break through to the heaven origin stage. But it had always been stuck at a bottleneck, and its strength had been shackled. However, after Ji Tianxing used his spiritual sense to carefully investigate its situation, he told it not to worry and just let nature take its course. It would definitely be able to break through to the heaven origin stage within 1 or 2 months at most. The little black dragon's situation was similar to Qianyu. It had always been stuck around the 9th level of the origin core stage and was unable to break through to the heaven origin stage. The little black dragon had discussed this problem with Ji Tianxing before. Ji Tianxing helped it check its situation and even specially consulted the Beast King. The Beast King's conclusion was that the little black dragon's situation was rather special. Its body lacked the dragon crystal that was essential to the dragon clan, so it was basically impossible for it to reach the heaven origin stage. Unless it could find its dragon crystal, its strength would not be restricted and would be able to continue growing rapidly. Ji Tianxing had always remembered this matter and did not forget the agreement he made with the little black dragon. Now that his strength was strong enough, he still had to pass through the heavenly star region and Yong and region on his way to the southern desolation swamp. So, he had already made up his mind to make a trip to the divine Hui sect when he passed through the Yong'an region. Chapter 926. The setting sun hung on the horizon and was about to disappear. The dim yellow sunlight shone on the sea of clouds and enveloped Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku. The two of them flew high in the sky on Qianyu and were already far away from continent center city. If Ji Tianxing went to the southern wasteland swamp alone, the journey would definitely be boring. However, with Ji Ku accompanying him and talking to him along the way, it was not boring. Ji Ku and him reminisced about the past and talked about some interesting things in Clear Sky Kingdom when they were young. When they talked about funny things, the two of them would smile and let out a light laugh. Ji Ku knew that Ji Tianxing was bitter and uncomfortable in his heart, so she deliberately told him some interesting childhood stories to cheer him up and help him relieve his worries. Of course, Ji Tianxing could see her good intentions, and he could also feel her concern. He secretly sighed in his heart. In these 2 years, Cuckoo has also experienced a lot of ups and downs. She has grown and changed a lot, especially in terms of her temperament. The two of them chatted along the road, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. With Ji Ku's help, Ji Tianxing's worries and bitterness were alleviated by a lot. Unknowingly, night fell. The world was dark, and the cold wind in the sky was biting cold. Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku gradually stopped chatting and quieted down. They sat on Qianyu's back and closed their eyes to rest, thinking about their own matters. After a while, Qianyu was flying over a vast mountain range. Under the curtain of night, the mountain range was covered with dark green forests, and there was a faint mist rising. When Qianyu was about to cross a 1,000-feet tall mountain, Ji Tianxing suddenly felt a strange aura. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a sharp glint flashed through his eyes. Qianyu stopped. Although Qianyu did not know what was going on, it stopped flying without hesitation and floated in the sky 1,000 meters away from the mountain peak. "Old Ji, what's wrong?" Ji Ku was also awakened. He looked at Ji Tianxing in confusion and asked, "Brother Tianxing, what happened?" Ji Tianxing's face was as dark as water. His eyes were sharp as he stared at the mountain in front of him. He said in a deep voice, "There are fluctuations of a formation on that mountain. It should be a formation and an ambush. Someone is lying in ambush." Jiku immediately frowned, and his gaze turned serious. Right at this moment, a huge pale red light barrier lit up at the peak of the mountain, sealing off an area of 5 kilometers. With the mountain peak as the center, the sky within a radius of 5 kilometers was shrouded in a dark red light screen, illuminating the night sky in a dark red color. Ji Tianxing, Ji Ke, and Qian Yu were also enveloped by the dark red light and felt an invisible pressure. Immediately afterward, a few beams of spiritual light flashed from the top of the mountain and flew over as fast as lightning. A total of 5 dazzling spiritual lights flew to 1,000 meters away from Ji Tianxing in the blink of an eye and stopped in the sky. After the lights faded, the figures of 5 divine prime cultivators were revealed. The 5 of them stood proudly in the night sky, looking coldly at Ji Tianxing and Ji Ke. There was a sinister sneer on their faces. The leader standing at the very front was an elegant young master dressed in a blue robe. His face was as beautiful as a woman's. He held a string of grayish-white beads in his left hand and a green jade folding fan in his right. He exuded a noble and graceful aura. Such a distinguished young man was like a star in the night sky. Wherever he went, he would be dazzling. Ji Tianxing only needed a glance to recognize him. He was the eldest son of the Morong clan Morong Lingfeng. The 4 heaven origin experts standing behind Morong Lingfeng wore robes of different colors. Their attire was different from one another. 3 of them were middle-aged men. One was tall and sturdy, while the other was lean and capable. Their eyes were sharp like swords. There was also a white-haired old man. His skin was as dry as tree bark, but it was faintly green. In his hand, he held a cane made of wrought tan. The 4 of them were around the 8th level of the Divine Prime stage. The strongest of them was the white-haired old man. He was actually at the 9th level of the Divine Prime stage. Ji Tianxing, you really can't be underestimated. You could even detect the innate wood divine fire array that the 5 of us set up. It's a pity that it's too late for you to notice. You're still trapped by the array. Tonight, you won't be able to escape the fate of being turned into ashes. Morong Lingfeng gently waved his green jade folding fan. There was a mocking sneer on his face. His tone was indescribably proud, as if he had a card up his sleeve. Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly. He asked coldly, "Morong Lingfeng, you wanted to get on my good side at first. Now that you can't get on my side, you're finally going to kill me?" Morong Lingfeng nodded with a cold smile. "That's right. I'm not Duanmu Yulong. I won't act rashly. I won't take the lead to deal with you. However, after the Duanmu clan was destroyed, I knew that I had no hope of getting you under my control. I can only get rid of you." Ji Ke glared at him with a face full of anger. He shouted coldly, "Morong Lingfeng, you despicable man. How dare you? This place isn't far from the imperial court. How dare you ambush Brother Tianxing here? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the imperial court and the monarch mansion?" Morong Lingfeng shot a glance at Ji Ke and said with a cold smile, "Compared to this young master's actions, Ji Tianxing actually dared to destroy the Duanmu family. Isn't he even more audacious? Since he has no scruples, why should I care about what the imperial court and the monarch mansion think?" Ji Ke was furious, but he couldn't say anything. Ji Tianxing didn't get angry. He glanced at Morong Lingfeng and the 4 heaven origin experts indifferently. He said with disdain, "Morong Lingfeng, I don't understand. Where did you and these 4 old trash get the courage to kill me? Didn't your master tell you that even he and his heaven-swallowing beast were severely injured by me and almost lost their lives? Even your master didn't dare to provoke me. Who gave you the guts to ambush me?" Morong Lingfeng's expression changed drastically. He frowned and revealed a bewildered expression. The matter of the buried star sea and the heaven-swallowing beast was the 3rd prince's humiliation. How could he tell Morong Lingfeng? The 3rd prince only reminded Morong Lingfeng not to provoke Ji Tianxing easily. He had to plan carefully before taking action. Morong Lingfeng hadn't fought with Ji Tianxing before. How could he know how strong Ji Tianxing's real combat power was? When he heard Ji Tianxing's words, he was shocked and doubtful. Of course, he didn't believe it. Ji Tianxing, don't you dare bluff. How can you be a match for the Lord? Now that the Lord is cultivating in seclusion, I don't need to disturb the Lord. I can deal with you myself. I'm ranked 7th in the monarch mansion. How can you imagine my strength and methods? These 4 experts are the top experts that the Murong clan has recruited from hundreds of millions of martial artists. They are also the dragon protectors that the Murong clan has secretly nurtured. Tonight, the 4 dragon protectors and I have ambushed you personally. This shows that we value you greatly. Chapter 927. Murong Lingfeng's tone was full of confidence and murderous intent. He was at Sky Origin Stage Level 8, the same as Ji Tianxing. He also had the help of the 4 Dragon Guardians, and the innate E with Divine Fire Array. Under such circumstances, why couldn't he kill Ji Tianxing? Even though Ji Tianxing was the #1 genius of the human race, he was still at Sky Origin Stage Level 8. However, he was only at the 8th level of the Sky Origin stage after all. How could he be compared to a soul refining stage cultivator? The way Murong Lingfeng saw it, Ji Tianxing absolutely did not have the slightest trace of luck. Tonight, he would die without a doubt. Murong Lingfeng's entire body was filled with murderous intent. He was secretly accumulating power, ready to strike at any time. He stared coldly at Ji Tianxing and said in a dignified tone, Ji Tianxing, I'm giving you one last chance. If you want to live, seal your power and kneel down to surrender. Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly. His cold eyes were filled with contempt and pity. Murong Lingfeng, if I don't kill you tonight, I'll be letting you down for your stupidity and arrogance. As he spoke, his entire body lit up with golden light and murderous intent. Murong Lingfeng's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He shouted angrily, Ji Tianxing, you're asking for it. Kill him. Murong Lingfeng ordered and rushed towards Ji Tianxing. He waved the green jade folding fan in his hand and slashed out several rays of dazzling sword light. Each ray of sword light was 30 meters long and contained an unparalleled power. They were as fast as lightning and arrived in front of Ji Tianxing in an instant, covering his body. The 4 dragon guardians followed closely behind. They all took out their weapons and performed their ultimate skills to attack Ji Tianxing. Flying Star Slash. Sword sealing all directions. Withered Wood Dragon Elephant Technique. Dragon Thousand Shadow Slash. All of a sudden, the 5-colored spiritual light condensed into sword and saber lights, giant palms that blotted out the sun, and light shadows, illuminating the night sky within a radius of dozens of miles. All sorts of ultimate killing moves erupted with terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth, pouring down on Ji Tianxing. At the critical moment, he did not panic and instantly took out his Dharma treasure, the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. He put Qian Yu and Ji Ku into the Seal of Mountains and Rivers space, and closed his golden wings to protect himself. Bang 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 bang. The true essence brilliance that blotted out the sky fiercely smashed into the pair of golden wings, causing a series of muffled explosions. The pair of golden wings trembled continuously, flashing with a dazzling golden light. Ji Tianxing was knocked back 1,000 meters, almost falling from the sky to the ground. However, the Kenshin battle robe was able to withstand everyone's joint attack, and was unscathed. Violent shockwaves spread out in all directions, creating layers of colorful ripples in the night sky, making the night sky gorgeous. Murong Lingfeng and the 4 dragon guardians were stunned when they saw that Ji Tianxing was unscathed, revealing an expression of disbelief. The power of their joint attack was comparable to a first-level soul-refining realm cultivator's full power attack. Ji Tianxing was only at the 8th level of Sky Origin Realm. How could he block it? At this moment, Ji Tianxing's body surged with golden light that soared into the sky, bursting with an unparalleled killing intent. It instantly condensed into a huge golden sword that was hundreds of meters long. White Tiger Sacred Sword. Swoosh. The huge golden sword that was hundreds of meters long was surrounded by dazzling golden flames, condensing into the image of a white tiger. It was as fast as lightning, piercing through the night sky, and piercing towards Morong Lingfeng. Morong Lingfeng's aura was locked onto by the White Tiger sacred sword. He endured the incomparably sharp sword chi's suppression and felt a chill all over his body. His heart was filled with shock and fear. Under the cover of the White Tiger sacred sword, he felt that there was nowhere to run, let alone dodge. That huge golden sword that could split heaven and earth exploded with a power that could destroy heaven and earth. It had completely surpassed the Sky Origin realm and was comparable to a soul-refining realm cultivator's attack. Morong Lingfeng simply did not dare to believe that Ji Tianqing could actually display such a horrifying sword art with such power. At this critical moment of life and death, he waved his left palm without hesitation and shot out the gray-white pearl necklace, pouring his boundless true essence into it. Buzz! Suddenly, the gray-white pearl necklace blossomed with dazzling white light, condensing into a huge shield that wrapped around his body. Almost at the same time, the White Tiger sacred sword fiercely slammed into the white shield, exploding with an earth-shattering sound. Boom! The loud sound shook the heavens as the white shield exploded into pieces that filled the sky. Morong Lingfeng's face was deathly pale as he flew backwards. While he was still in the air, his mouth and nose were overflowing with dark red blood. The White Tiger sacred sword's golden light also quickly converged. After the huge sword disappeared, Ji Tianqing's figure appeared. He originally wanted to take advantage of the situation to chase after Morong Lingfeng and completely cripple him, or even kill him on the spot. However, it was a pity that the 4 dragon guardians had already regained their senses. They were eager to protect their master. Seeing that Morong Lingfeng was injured, they disregarded everything and rushed over to attack Ji Tianqing again. Since you are so eager to die, I will fulfill your wish. Ji Tianqing's face was cold as he shouted in a low voice. His body surged with red flames that soared to the sky. His body merged with the flames and turned into a huge flaming sword that was hundreds of meters long. Vermilion Bird Sacred Sword. The huge sword was surrounded by flames and condensed into a huge shadow of a vermilion bird that was as big as a mountain. It stretched out its sharp claws and attacked a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. Bang! 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 The Vermilion Bird Sacred Sword pierced through the night sky and destroyed the saber lights and sword shadows that were used by the crowd. It fiercely bombarded the tall and sturdy man. A series of muffled sounds burst out. The saber lights and sword shadows that filled the sky all collapsed and exploded into countless pieces, splashing in all directions. The tall and sturdy man was only at the 8th level of Sky Origin stage. He didn't have a treasure to protect himself like Morong Lingfeng did. Therefore, he was killed by the Vermilion Bird Sacred Sword right away. His protective Zhen Yuan collapsed immediately. His body was smashed into pieces by the Vermilion Bird Sacred Sword. Pieces of flesh and blood splashed everywhere. The raging red flames burned the pieces of flesh and blood into black ashes that scattered in the night sky. A powerful cultivator at the 8th level of Sky Origin stage, the dragon guardian that the Morong clan spent 20 years to cultivate with countless resources, was killed so easily. Moreover, he was instantly killed by Ji Tianqing. The other 3 dragon guardian envoys turned pale after witnessing the scene with their own eyes. Their faces were filled with terror. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe it at all. Even Morong Lingfeng, who had retreated far away, was completely dumbfounded. He was dumbstruck. He was also at the 8th level of Sky Origin stage. He ranked 7th in the king's mansion. He had always been proud of it. Although he could defeat the dragon guardian, he would have to try his best. It would take him at least 20 moves to defeat the dragon guardian. Ji Tianqing was at the same level as him. However, he killed the dragon guardian with one sword strike. What kind of terrifying battle prowess was this? At this moment, Morong Lingfeng suddenly regretted it. Chapter 928. Morong Lingfeng and the other 3 emissaries were shocked. It took them a while to come back to their senses. Ji Tianqing seized the chance and rushed to another emissary. It was a skinny middle-aged man who was dressed like a scholar. He was also at the 8th level of Sky Origin stage. Ji Tianqing was glowing with golden light. He was like a golden shooting star piercing through the sky. He was extremely fast. The three emissaries realized what was going on. They were all frightened. They waved their weapons angrily, trying their best to perform their killing moves. They released gigantic swords and light blades that blotted out the sun and sky, releasing mountain-sized phantoms of dragons and beasts, attacking Ji Tianqing from all sides with all their might. However, Ji Tianqing just kept rushing forward. He didn't want to dodge at all. Within a blink, he was covered by the overwhelming sword lights and saber lights. The three dragon guardians were pleasantly surprised as they let out a sigh of relief. However, they didn't expect that Ji Tianqing's body would suddenly become blurry. He performed the sword soul battle technique that he created himself, instantly controlling the battlefield within a radius of 20 miles and observing the attacks of the three dragon guardians. He saw through the attack patterns of the dozens of sword lights and saber lights. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. His body kept flashing. He creepily went through the sword lights and saber lights. He wasn't stopped at all. In the next moment, he appeared in front of the middle-aged scholar like a ghost. A cold smile appeared on his handsome face. "You can die now." The middle-aged scholar was shocked. He widely opened his eyes in shock. He was terrified. He couldn't believe that Ji Tianqing had actually passed through the gaps between the attacks that filled the sky and miraculously arrived in front of him. That is a ghost. Murong Lingfeng and the other two dragon protectors were also dumbfounded. They stared at Ji Tianqing with their mouths agape and exclaimed in disbelief. "Oh my God! Is he a man or a ghost? Our attacks don't work on him?" At this moment, Ji Tianqing raised his left hand, which was as red as lava, and fiercely slapped out a mountain-sized flaming palm. Burning sky palm. Endless red flames condensed into a sky-burning giant palm, erupting with a violent power that could destroy heaven and earth. In an instant, it struck the middle-aged scholar and drowned his figure. Boom! With a muffled sound, the middle-aged scholar was sent flying backwards with blood spurting out of his 7 orifices. His body immediately exploded into thousands of pieces of broken bones and flesh, and a dark red rain of blood splashed out. However, the pieces of flesh were burned into black ash by the giant flaming palm, and the blood rain was also evaporated into nothingness by the crimson flames. Not only was the middle-aged scholar killed in an instant, even his corpse was not left behind. He had truly been reduced to ashes. The second guardian dragon emissary was instantly killed. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Murong Lingfeng and the two dragon protectors sensed that something was wrong, but they were too late to help. When Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and continued to rush towards the third dragon guardian emissary, everyone was scared out of their wits and panicked. "Bastard! How is this possible? How can he be so strong?" Murong Lingfeng roared crazily. His face was contorted in anger, and his body was surging with murderous flames. He quickly waved his green jade fan and formed a mysterious seal. He used his array formation skill to control the Khanate E with divine fire array. I don't believe that no matter how strong you are, you can resist the power of the array formation. Under his control, the Khanate E with divine fire array released an extremely strong suppressive force and blasted towards Ji Tianqing. Not only that, but a dazzling fire light lit up high in the sky and poured down on Ji Tianqing like a torrential flood. Ji Tianqing was about to use his unique skill to kill the third dragon guardian emissary. The formless power of the array blasted towards him, causing his body to tremble and fly back 100 feet. His face was ghastly pale, and his chest rose and fell rapidly. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He raised his head to look at the sky, and saw flames pouring down from the sky like a flood. At the critical moment, he quickly used the seal of mountains and rivers to block above his head. Swoosh! The seal of mountains and rivers expanded to a radius of 20 feet. It floated above his head like a house, emitting a dazzling golden light. Endless flames poured down, but they were all blocked by the seal of mountains and rivers. The flames spread in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the night sky within a 10-mile radius was covered by flames and turned into a sea of fire. However, the seal of mountains and rivers protected Ji Tianqing, so he was not hurt at all and was not burned by the flames at all. He rushed towards the third Dragon Guardian emissary, as fast as lightning. Dazzling golden light poured out from his palms, and formed a giant golden sword that was 100 feet long. Golden Slash. The giant golden sword released an extremely sharp sword chi that tore the night sky apart and destroyed the oncoming saber radiance and sword shadows. Boom! The giant golden sword hit the dark-skinned Dragon Guardian emissary, and there was a loud thud. The Dragon Guardian emissary was split in half by the giant sword. Dark red blood spurted out from his corpse and fell to the ground below. The third Dragon Guardian emissary could not escape the fate of being killed instantly. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing immediately changed his direction and turned into a shooting light, rushing towards the last Dragon Guardian emissary. It was a white-haired old man with a cane in his hand. He was the leader of the 4 Dragon Guardian emissaries. His Taoist name was Master Kumu. He was at Sky Origin Stage Level 9 and was highly valued by Morong Lingfeng. However, he had witnessed 3 Dragon Guardian emissaries being killed. He was scared out of his wits. Seeing Ji Tianqing rushing towards him, he was so scared that he started to tremble. He turned around and ran towards Morong Lingfeng without hesitation. He knew that he could not stop Ji Tianqing, so he wanted to meet up with Morong Lingfeng and borrow the power of the Khanate Ewood Divine Fire Array to save his life. However, Ji Tianqing was twice as fast as him. He caught up with him in the blink of an eye. Sword of Judgment! Ji Tianqing shouted with a loud voice. He took out the sword embryo in his body and turned it into a giant golden sword that was over 30 meters long. He rushed towards Master Kumu. The giant golden sword was burning with golden flames. It condensed into a pair of golden wings and shone with golden light. It tore apart the night sky for dozens of miles. Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, the Sword of Judgment hit Master Kumu and drowned his body. His rattan cane was shattered, his protective Zhen Yuan collapsed, and his body exploded with a loud bang, turning into dust by the Sword of Judgment. Master Kumu was at Sky Origin Stage Level 9. He had been cultivating for over 200 years. He was extremely powerful. He was still wearing a magic armor and desperately performing a secret technique to block the attack of the Sword of Judgment. However, it was all useless. Under the destructive Sword of Judgment, he could not escape the fate of being killed instantly. He was turned into dust on the spot. It had only been a few dozen breaths since the beginning of the battle. The 4 Dragon Guardians were all killed instantly. Only Ji Tianqing and Morong Lingfeng were left in the night sky. Morong Lingfeng's face turned gray. His eyes were filled with despair. He shouted in a low voice, "Why? How is this possible?" Chapter 929. Morong Lingfeng had always thought highly of himself and was arrogant in his heart. However, Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength had crushed his confidence and arrogance. He and Ji Tianqing were of the same realm, but the difference in combat power was huge. They were not on the same level at all. He did not want to believe it, but he could not accept this reality. Thick anger and jealousy caused his face to turn ashen. His face was distorted and ferocious, and his eyes turned blood red. However, he did not lose his rationality. He knew that tonight's ambush plan had failed. The 4 Dragon Guardians were already dead. He alone was definitely not Ji Tianqing's match. If he continued to fight, only death would await him. He had the intention to retreat. Seeing Ji Tianqing coming for him again, he did not hesitate to turn around and escape, flying far away. Ji Tianqing, the Morong family will remember this. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Let's wait and see. I will trample you under my feet sooner or later. How could someone like Morong Lingfeng, who considered himself to be extraordinary and arrogant, endure the humiliation of running away in a sorry state like a rat covering its head? Before he left, he had to leave behind a few harsh words to cover up the humiliation in his heart and find a way out for himself. Of course, he was not just saying these words for fun. As long as he could escape tonight, he would definitely ask his father, Morong Zheng, to kill Ji Tianqing when he returned to the Morong family. However, he had just turned around and escaped 20 miles away when Ji Tianqing caught up with him like a flash of light. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing stepped on the 3-meter golden, sword formed by the sword embryo, and blocked Morong Lingfeng's path. He looked at Morong Lingfeng coldly, and his lips curled into a mocking smile. Morong Lingfeng, since you're here, you still want to leave? You're too naive. If you want revenge, why wait 10 years? Now is the best time. Tonight, you and I will settle our grudges here. Morong Lingfeng was forced to stop. He stood still in the night sky and looked at him with a ferocious expression. He was furious and humiliated to the extreme. Ji Tianqing, do you really want to kill them all? As the 7th emperor's son, the son of the first wife of the Morong family, how could I not have a trump card? If I am determined to die, I will definitely take you down with me. Of course, Morong Lingfeng had a trump card. Not only did he have a powerful ultimate skill, but he also had a mysterious treasure. Although he admitted that he was not a match for Ji Tianqing, he was willing to pay any price to counterattack and drag Ji Tianqing down with him. Ji Tianqing did not take his threat to heart. He sneered contemptuously. Perish together? You're thinking too much. You don't have the strength, nor the qualifications. An annoying fly like you, I must slap you to death. I will never let you annoy me like a clown again. Flies? Jumping clown. Morong Lingfeng was so angry that smoke came out of his 7 orifices. He almost vomited blood on the spot. He thought of himself as a top genius and a noble figure of the human race, who was many times nobler than Ji Tianqing. He did not expect that in Ji Tianqing's eyes, he would be so petty and lowly, just like a fly. This was definitely the biggest humiliation in his life. The unparalleled anger and humiliation made him irritable and crazy. He finally recognized the reality and no longer held any hope. He quickly took out a dark red 9-story pagoda. He held the 9-story pagoda in his left hand and the green jade folding fan in his right. He stared at Ji Tianqing with a ferocious expression and grinned. Ji Tianqing, you forced me to do this. You're finished. This is one of the treasures of the Morong family, the mid-grade 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda. Since you want to kill me, we will die together. As he spoke, he frantically channeled his true essence into the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda. Suddenly, the 1-foot-tall 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda became thousands of times bigger with a whoosh. It became a giant pagoda thousands of feet tall. The 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda stood tall in the sky, as if it was connected to the 9 heavens. It gathered the fire spirit energy from hundreds of miles away and condensed it into endless 9 heavens glazed fire. The giant pagoda soared with dark golden flames, illuminating the night sky for hundreds of miles, turning the area into a world of fire. In the darkness of the night, the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda was like an indomitable beacon that could be seen from thousands of miles away. Morong Lingfeng stood in front of the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda, his whole body emitting a murderous aura. His clothes fluttered as he shouted with a ferocious expression, Ji Tianqing, what qualifications do you have to look down on me? Look down on you? Ji Tianqing still had a mocking expression on his face. He sneered contemptuously. No, I want to kill you. As his voice fell, he activated the 3rd eye on his forehead. Thunder. In the golden eye, the azure spirit pupil released destructive thunder and lightning. It condensed into 100 feet long, as thick as a water tank, and fiercely bombarded Morong Lingfeng. But Morong Lingfeng was already prepared. His figure flashed into the indomitable 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda. Kaboom! The thunder light beam fiercely bombarded the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda, exploding with an earth-shaking roar. At that moment, the thunder light beam collapsed, exploding into a sky full of thunder and lightning arcs, covering dozens of miles of the night sky. The huge pagoda also trembled from the bombardment, splashing golden flames all over the sky, covering hundreds of miles. The mountains and forests in this area were immediately covered by the raging fire, turning into a boundless sea of fire. In just 10 short breaths, hundreds of miles of land were burned into a pitch-black scorched ruin. Morong Lingfeng hid in the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda and laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha. Ji Tianqing, with your insignificant strength, you can't even scratch my itch. I've already told you you can't kill me at all. Is that so? Then open your dog eyes wide. Ji Tianxing sneered and shouted angrily. He took out his magic treasure, the soul-reaping bell, and poured all his vital essence into it. Suddenly, the palm-sized black bell turned into a huge black ancient bell that was as big as a mountain. It emitted an aura of death that covered the sky and earth. Kill! Ji Tianxing shouted and used all his strength to activate the soul-reaping bell, smashing it fiercely at the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda. Bam! In the deafening loud noise, the soul-reaping bell hit the 5th level of the pagoda, right in the middle. The sky-reaching pagoda was on the verge of collapsing, bursting with glazed fire pagoda that covered the sky and the earth. There were also cracking sounds. The 5th level of the pagoda was smashed into a huge pit, and dense cracks appeared all around. Morong Lingfeng's face changed dramatically, revealing a look of horror. No, how is this possible? Ji Tianxing ignored him, and waved his hands to cast a spell, retrieving the weakened soul-reaping bell. He then used all his strength to activate the seal of mountains and rivers, smashing it fiercely at the 5th level of the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda. Boom! Another earth-shattering noise burst out, and the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda was smashed from the sky, crashing into the scorched earth below with a rumble. The ground was smashed into a deep pit with a radius of dozens of miles, and dust and glazed fire pagoda splashed everywhere. The pagoda cracked again, and more than half of the 5th level collapsed. There was a huge crack, and it was about to break. Morong Lingfeng was instantly filled with fear as he roared. Ji Tianxing, you bastard! Bastard! How can you have 2 magic treasures? 2 magic treasures? Ha ha ha! Ji Tianxing took back the seal of mountains and rivers with a sneer, and took out the azure light treasure tree. He burst out with a majestic amount of vital essence, and poured it into the azure light treasure tree, turning it into a giant tree that was thousands of feet tall, and smashed it fiercely at the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda. He actually has a 3rd soul tool. That's the azure light treasure tree? Morong Lingfeng was in complete despair, and his eyes revealed a thick gray color. Chapter 930. Boom! Crack! The 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda shattered into 2 halves with a loud bang that shook the 9 heavens. Countless dark golden fragments mixed with the flames and splattered in all directions, covering the night sky. The 2 halves of the 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda continued to pour out golden flames. Its power quickly leaked out and became very weak. Soon, the 2 halves of the pagoda shrunk to 3 meters long and fell into the huge pit. More than half of it was covered by the black scorched earth. Morong Lingfeng's figure appeared in the pit. His entire body was black, and his clothes were tattered as he fell into the scorched earth. His body twitched uncontrollably as dark red blood flowed out. The 9 heavens glazed fire pagoda was destroyed, and he was also heavily injured. His disheveled appearance was extremely wretched. Swoosh! A golden light flashed, and Ji Tianxing flew to the bottom of the pit, and arrived in front of him. Morong Lingfeng, do you submit? Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly, and asked in a cold tone. Morong Lingfeng raised his head with difficulty. His face was ferocious as he glared at him. His blood-filled eyes surged with resentment and hatred. No, I refuse to submit. My background is 100 times more noble than yours. My talent is more outstanding than yours. My intelligence far surpasses yours. Why can you obtain everyone's support? Which part of me is not better than you? Ji Tianxing looked at him indifferently, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. He seemed to be talking to himself as he muttered, "Haha, as expected, he's conceited to the bone, and has already become sick. Our grudge ends here. It's time to end it. If there's a next life, remember not to provoke me." When his voice fell, he waved his right sleeve, and slashed out a dark golden sword light. Swoosh! The incomparably sharp sword light instantly pierced through Morong Lingfeng's chest, and crushed his heart. Morong Lingfeng's eyes widened on the spot. The life in his eyes quickly dissipated, and blood also flowed out from the corner of his mouth. After that, Ji Tianxing waved his hand, and fired out a red flame. It enveloped his corpse and quickly burned it to ashes. A gust of wind blew, sweeping up the black ashes on the ground, and scattering them in the pit. Shwa! Ji Tianqing picked up Morong Lingfeng's spatial ring, turned around, and left the deep pit, flying into the dark night sky. He released Qian Yu and Ji Ke from the seal of mountains and rivers, and continued to fly south through the night sky. Qian Yu and Ji Ke stayed in the Dharma treasure space, their hearts filled with worry. After seeing him, Ji Ke couldn't wait to ask, "Brother Tianqing, how's the situation? Are you hurt?" Qian Yu looked around, and saw the ruins, and the huge crater. He asked curiously, "Old Ji, where are those bastards? Did you kill them all? Did you scare that androgynous gigolo away too?" Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, "I've already killed Morong Lingfeng and the 4 dragon protectors." He briefly explained what had happened. After Qian Yu and Ji Ke heard it, they were shocked and couldn't believe it. "Brother Tianqing, Morong Lingfeng is the 7th-ranked imperial prince in the monarch mansion. The 4 dragon protectors are also Heaven Yuan experts who have been famous for more than 100 years. But you killed them all and you're still unharmed? Isn't this too unbelievable? Old Ji, your combat strength has reached such a level? Isn't it comparable to a first-stage soul refinement realm expert?" Ji Tianqing nodded with a smile and didn't say anything else. Ji Ke and Qian Yu were excited for a long time before they gradually calmed down. Ji Tianqing sat on Qian Yu's back and took out Morong Lingfeng's spatial ring to check the spoils of war. The space in the spatial ring was huge and was divided into 4 areas to store all kinds of cultivation resources and treasures. Morong Lingfeng not only had abundant resources and wealth, but he also had obsessive-compulsive disorder or mysophobia. Not only had he divided the resources and treasures into 4 areas, but he had also arranged them in an orderly manner. This was no doubt convenient for Ji Tianqing. It only took him an hour to check all the cultivation resources and treasures. More than 20,000 high-grade spiritual stones, more than 300 Heaven Yuan weapons, more than 1,000 elixirs, 3 soul-level elixirs, more than 2,000 sets of materials for refining weapons and elixirs. There are also some fragments of ancient Dharma treasures, unknown antiques, and many other strange things. Such wealth is worth at least a few million spiritual stones. This guy is indeed worthy of being the heir of an ancient family. Even the second-rate wealthy families in Middle State don't have this much wealth, right? With these resources and treasures from Morong Lingfeng, I won't lack cultivation resources for at least a few years. It's enough for me to break through to the soul refinement realm." Ji Tianqing was a little surprised. He sighed with emotion. Being born in an ancient family like the Morong family, even a pig can be nurtured into an expert with endless cultivation resources. Of course, this was only limited to those below the Heaven Yuan realm. To break through to the Heaven Yuan realm, not only did one need a huge amount of cultivation resources, but also high talent and aptitude. As for the soul refinement realm, it was not something that could be nurtured with resources, nor was it something that could be achieved with outstanding talent. It also required extraordinary aptitude and comprehension, guidance from a master teacher expert, as well as great fortuitous encounters. After that, Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke hurried on with their journey. There were no more twists and turns along the way. Qian Yu carried them out of Middle State and entered the southern continent. In half a month, they passed through 3 regions, and even passed by the Tianshan region. The Tianshan region was guarded by 100,000 elite soldiers. It was safe and sound, and the people lived and worked in peace. Ji Tianqing did not return to the ancient star realm, nor did he go to the royal azure cloud kingdom. On the morning of the 18th day, Qian Yu carried him and Ji Ke to the Shenhui sect in the Yong'an region. The Shenhui sect was located in the middle of the mountains, on the majestic Imprint Peak. The Imprint Peak was a huge mountain that was thousands of feet tall. It was also the mountain with the densest spiritual energy, within a few hundred miles. More than 100 years ago, the Shenhui sect was at its peak, and was the #1 sect in the Yong'an region. It was said that the Imprint Peak was a top-notch land with spiritual veins. There were spiritual flowers and herbs everywhere, and the spiritual energy could almost condense into colorful clouds. At that time, the Shenhui sect had close to 10,000 disciples, hundreds of deacons, and more than a dozen elders. The number of Heaven Yuan realm experts reached 3. Even the current Sky Pillar sect could not be compared to the Shenhui sect of the past. However, these glorious deeds had become history. After a great calamity, the Shenhui sect suffered heavy losses and was almost destroyed. Today, the Shenhui sect still existed in this world, but it had become an unknown second-rate sect. When Ji Tianqing flew above the imprint peak, he saw that only half of the 1,000-feet-tall mountain was left. The front of the imprint peak still looked decent. The mountain was gentle, and there were ancient gates, houses, palaces, and other buildings. However, the back of the mountain seemed to have been split open by a sword. Only 1,000-feet-tall cliff was left, straight and steep. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.